Welcome to Draft Utopia on Restream. We'll be live on TalkShoe in just a few seconds. Chris Ransom, William Yanish here, and today going to preview the Stanley Cup Finals. I will let William choose what, because there's a few clips out there after we preview the Stanley Cup. If Joey's not here, there's a few clips, few things we can play. One is the Donald Trump thing with Mason Rudolph. I think the president just gave Mason Rudolph the kiss of death, but we'll get into that later. And the other is the Gavin McKenna interview. The only reason I'm open to playing that is because he sounded so mature. Like, he's in his +1 draft year, and he's praising the 20-year-olds on his team. I don't think we saw that from Caleb Williams once. And I loved Caleb Williams' tape. You were not as high on Caleb as I was, but I don't think we saw that from him once in the post-game press conferences because Gavin McKenna was praising like the 20-year-olds that are in their last year of junior hockey on the team, and he's only 17. So I would say he's more mature at his age than Caleb Williams was in his entire college career, maybe even NFL.
I like interviews. I mean, they give you a chance to look at these players and see who they are off the field,
All right, so we'll go with the interview after the Stanley Cup preview. I'm letting William decide what direction we go in there. I'm letting William make a lot of other executive decisions, whether it's with the group mock, whether it's with our sleeper rookie mock on Tuesday, which will be the feature on Under the Bleachers, 9 p.m. Eastern. But I'm going to get into the Stanley Cup Finals preview. It's a rematch of last year between Edmonton and Florida. And it's ironic. Joey picked Florida to win it all last year, and this year he picked Edmonton to beat Florida in a rematch of last year. I had Edmonton over Toronto in the preseason when I did all the season previews for all the NHL teams. And that was like when we gave you additional time. Like, we gave you until like 11 a.m. to relax, get stuff in your system when it was football season. So I'm not surprised Edmonton's here. Just more star power and the look Connor McDavid gave Draisaitl after they lost that 3-1 lead to Dallas in Game 1 and gave up 5 goals in the third period. They outscored Dallas 19-5, eliminated my Stars, and for the second year in a row, this time in 5 games versus 6, and they won 2 games on the road in Dallas this time around. So, I mean, but I think the decision by Peter DeBoer to pull the goalie was just very stupid. He only gave up 2 goals. If he gave up 3, 4, or 5, it'd be a different story, and you'd have the benefit of the doubt. But I just thought that was a very boneheaded decision. And if the coach had kept his emotions in check, we're looking at possibly a 3-3 game going to overtime versus Edmonton winning a 6-3 game in regulation. So and I'm not going to say Dallas would have won. I think it would have gone either way, to be completely honest.
I was rooting for Dallas trying to get you in there, but, it just didn't work out.
Edmonton just was the better team this year, and I kind of knew it because they were my preseason pick to win the Stanley Cup. I had Edmonton as 1A, Dallas was 2A if somebody knocked out Edmonton, but those were my top 2 teams, and I don't think we're going to see much turnover in the NHL, William, because Florida, they have a lot of their core players back. Everybody on their first line at left winger, center, right wingers under contract till 2030. It's just, can they bring back Sam Bennett at their second line center? Can they bring back Aaron Ekblad, the defender they took number 1 overall in 2014 when they began their rebuild? Can they bring back goalie Sergei Bobrovsky, who's going to turn 37 and enters the final year of his contract? If they can handle that, they've got $20 million cap space this year. If they can figure out a way to make all of that work, they're probably going to rule the Eastern Conference for the rest of this decade. And Edmonton, I think they've got this year and maybe next year, because only players they got to replace are the fourth line left winger and right wingers. They got all their centers back, all their defensemen back, both goalies back. So it's going to be hard for anybody to knock out Edmonton or Florida next year. I would say the only 2 teams with a shot are probably Dallas, and my dark horse for next year. Dark horse for this year was the New Jersey Devils, but they just had a ton of injuries. Jack Hughes got injured. Dougie Hamilton, their best defenseman, got injured. Luke Hughes, the younger brother of Jack Hughes, got injured. And you just can't win in sports when your best players have that many injuries. So,
yeah, injuries cause a ton of problems. You know, that every year we see teams drop from contenders to pretenders, you know, because of that. So,
and there's a lot of teams that have good star players like Colorado with McKinnon, McCarr, but they don't have that 3-4 lines of forwards, 3 good lines of defensemen, and stability at goalie. That's the problem. And a lot of these teams like Colorado and Vegas, they have the stars, but they don't have the depth to go all the way like they did in previous years. And that's something I've noticed. And then there's all these younger teams that are drafting well, like the Chicagos, the San Jose's, the Montreals. Montreal actually did get in this year. Barely. I mean, Carolina, they beat Washington. I know you watched that series, but, you know, it's just, it does feel like we are going to see a changing of the guard to some degree next year, but I'm not going to dive into that now. A reason I think Edmonton's going to win this series is I just think the McDavid-Draisaitl combo is too lethal. Joey might flip to Florida. It's possible because Zach Hyman, he did get a season-ending wrist injury in Game 4, courtesy of Mason Marchment. And I found out before this series started that Mason Marchment's dad injured Mike Modano in the 97 playoffs when he was on Edmonton, and he wore number 97, Connor McDavid's current number. So I'm thinking, oh, shit, here we go again. This time, Edmonton's going to be on the receiving end of the injury karma, and Mason's going to injure somebody on Edmonton. And I'm thinking, oh, since his dad wore 97, Connor McDavid, their best player's 97, that's who he's going to take out. But he ends up injuring Zach Hyman instead. But still, it sucks that happened regardless. Season-ending wrist surgery for Zach Hyman, Edmonton's best right winger. That is enough of a reason to pick Florida to repeat. I'm going to go with Edmonton, though, despite that injury, because I just think on paper they're a better team, and the way they responded after that first loss to Dallas like they meant business, I just think it's their time. I mean, you look at Gretzky, you look at Crosby, they all won rematches against the team that beat them in the previous Stanley Cup, and now we get a rematch of 2024. I think Connor McDavid's going to follow suit with Gretzky and Crosby, and he's going to win his first cup this year.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. You know, McDavid is just, he's too good. You know, getting depth on a team is really something. You know, I figured Dallas was kind of setting the tone, you know, when they went up 1-0. But after that, I mean, it was just one of those things where they got slapped and they reacted, and that's how it ended up falling, you know. I mean,
I like Dallas, but they might be Edmonton's little brother for another year because of all the stuff going on. I mean, I'll go through their salaries quickly because I sent Joey a list of some of the contract stars. Have Mikko Rantanen, $12 million for 8 years starting next season. Tyler Seguin, $9.85 million. That's probably the only overpay on the roster. Rupe Hintz, $8.45 million. Miro Heiskanen, $8.45 million. Your best center and best defenseman are making under $8.5 million. That's excellent value. Wyatt Johnston, $8.4 million. Jake Ottinger, $8.125 million for the next 8 years. He was the Stars' second first-round pick behind Miro in 2017. Jason Robertson, $7.5 million. My guess is Robertson probably gets 8 years, $8 million this summer, and Thomas Harley gets 7 years, $7 million. So that would take Dallas from 43 down to 28 million. But you'd have all your core guys locked up, all your core guys you drafted from 2017 and beyond paid, and you'd have 28 million to spend on free agents in 2026. That's why I'm saying if Dallas wins the Stanley Cup, it's probably going to be in the 26-27 season or 27-28. It's not going to be right now because Edmonton has less turnover than Dallas heading into next season, 25-26 season. And really, they just got to replace their fourth line wingers, and they can do that very easily because their two best minor league players, Seth Griffith, 72 points at right winger, can promote him, and you can promote Matthew Savoy, Buffalo's first-round pick that you got in a trade last summer, who had 51 points as a rookie in the minors. So you could just reload your team, replace your wingers with those guys from your farm system, and then you can just run this whole thing back next year. Even if the injury to Zach Hyman does cause the Panthers to repeat and the Oilers to lose the cup. So that's why I say Edmonton, they probably do have one more year. I'd like to break through next year, but I said the same thing this year, and I'm thinking, you know, It's not that one of these other teams like the Kings or the Vegas Golden Knights can't break through. It's just Joey and I both agreed Vegas's window kind of closed when they lost to Dallas last year, and pretty much everybody on Vegas is going to be 29 or 30 next year. They got to get younger. They've got to start actually drafting these guys, developing them, and getting younger, because if they don't, their window is going to close eventually, and they're going to end up having to go into a rebuild, kind of like what Pittsburgh's done.
Yeah, turnover and injuries cause so many question marks. Trying to replace some of these players.
I mean, Florida's second line's incredible this year. Brad Marchand, Seth Jones, those are probably the two best trade deadline moves outside of Mikko Rantanen. And you get those guys. Everybody's healthy in Florida. But, the thing is, I picked Toronto in the preseason because I thought, their lineup is deeper than Florida's, but their best players didn't show up in the playoffs, and now there's talk they're not going to pay Mitch Marner. And Marner's a guy who took 4th overall in the Connor McDavid draft in 2015. You're not going to be picking 4th in the NHL draft for a while if you're Toronto. So that's not a guy you're going to be able to replace easily. So I almost feel like they're bound to regress as a result. Even if they do get better depth players on their 3rd and 4th lines, they're not going to have the same dominance up front, and it's still going to lead to a bad result for them. But it sounds like we're both taking Edmonton.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I think it's just too much. Like I
I'm
said,
going to play the I'm going to play the clip here. I'm going to play the interview clip of Gavin McKenna because it might be hard to hear, but I'm going to pull up the notes here, pull up my X account, and got to find my bookmark tweets. Got to find my bookmarks. Here we go. All bookmarks. All right. It's about 7.5 minutes, but I'm going to play this interview with Gavin McKenna.
That's exciting for sure. Obviously, something we've worked towards all year, and for it to finally be here, it's been it's been a grind to get here, but we've earned it, and we're excited.
How do you approach these days off? Do you kind of try to relax and step away from the game, or do you try to stay?
And I got to give, before we resume this interview, I got to give Anthony, who came on our show a few weeks ago, credit. He was able to get audio of this interview, and I got to give him some credit because he did his homework. I listened to the interview twice before this live interview that I'm actually listening to with William, and I got to give him credit for getting this interview. And the only reason we're playing it because I want to talk about the maturity McKenna displayed.
Mentally, there's a lot going on around the rink, and it's good to kind of step away and just hang out with your teammates. But I think as you get closer to the game, it's time to dial in, and we're skating again. So I think that's where we got to start to dial it in. Not overly. I think we just hang out as a team, walk around the city, go get some ice cream, go get some food, just hang around as a team. We're a tight group, so we do everything together.
What did you think of the Tigers summer?
That was pretty cool. I think our team's excited when we got that support. It kind of just shows that it's not just us we're doing it for. We're doing it for other people who are there watching us and supporting us. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's good to get a little bit of a break. It's key for us to be rested, and we've dealt with injuries all year. So for us to kind of be fully healthy for our last game of the year, it's exciting. Yeah, it kind of fuels you. I think our team, we love each other, so it sucks that it's their last game together. But with that being said, we're all going to leave it all out there. We're not saving it for anything, and we want to get it done.
What makes this group of 20s so special?
Just how much for the team they are. I think the 20s are the heart and soul of your team, and you need the 20s to win. And I think we got the best 20s. So for them to be here and battle their whole career to get here, and we want to get it done for them.
All right. I'm not going to play the entire interview. You can go to the Prospect Don, subscribe to his YouTube channel if you want a whole 7 minutes. But the point is that type of unselfishness from Gavin McKenna, because in junior hockey, you can play from ages 16 to 20, and 20 is the final year you can play junior hockey. So the fact that McKenna was the first 14-year-old drafted into the Western Hockey League. He'll be eligible for the 26 NHL draft. But the fact that he's talking about the 20-year-olds, the seniors at his age, shows levels of maturity. And I know we've talked about this guy as much as we've talked about Caleb Williams in his +1 draft year, but it's like I told William earlier. I did not see this level of maturity that we just heard from McKenna, from Caleb, in any of his years at USC or Oklahoma for that matter. And I like Caleb as a prospect and a football player, but if I were just grading those two on maturity, I would probably go 3 checks for McKenna, like positive checks, and maybe a minus for Caleb. I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah, maturity is definitely a thing, and with the questions that come out about some of these guys, there's so much that they can do to clean it up, and so many times that they don't, and I mean that shows the immaturity.
And if you're a draft prospect, you're listening to William and I right now, one thing you can take away from this Gavin McKenna interview is inclusive words. We, our, the team. You really want to sell scouts on your unselfishness, you need to make inclusive words a regular thing in your press conferences. That would be my pointer to anybody listening to this show that's trying to actually get drafted in a professional team or sport or organization, or maybe you're a Canadian junior hockey player tuning into the show. That would be my tip.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, there's, like I said, just so much they can do to clean it up, and I mean, listening to some of these other interviews and stuff, and I don't know, I mean, you mentioned Caleb Williams, and there's just so much
I like Caleb Williams' college tape, but the problem is he never really used inclusive words in any of his press conferences. He just sort of expected all the bling and all the accolades to be handed to him on a silver platter like he's the King Midas of quarterbacks. You're good, Caleb, but you're not the King Midas of quarterbacks yet. Got a long way to go to reach that level, buddy.
Yeah. And, I think maybe the only time he ever used an inclusive word were when he was talking about we, when, him and his mother were painting their fingernails together, I mean.
I didn't even catch that. So kudos to you for actually catching that.
But no, man, that's actually great coming from somebody that young. I mean.
Exactly. That's what you want to hear from your number 1 pick. And, the other top two players in next year's draft, Ryan Ruberek, probably going to go back to the OHL, but Keaton Verahoff, the top defenseman in next year's draft, who's also in the Western Hockey League with Gavin McKenna, committed to North Dakota. And tomorrow night, it's going to be the London Knights and the Medicine Hat Tigers for the championship, like we said in last week's show. So if Gavin McKenna wins that 58-point streak in the WHL, he really doesn't have anything else to prove in the WHL. He'd benefit more from going to college and playing against older players, because maybe he won't produce 100 points. Maybe he'll only have like 60 or 80, but 60 or 80 against older players is more impressive to professional scouts than getting 158 on the same team he played for last year with the same group of guys. But it's his decision, and either way, I think he's going to go number 1 in next year's NHL draft.
Yeah, that's definitely a great take on that.
But the fact that his competition's choosing the college route over the WHL route, I kind of want to see him take the college route too, so we can really hammer this who's the best, who's really going to rise against the toughest level of competition. But it's his decision either way, and I don't think it's going to matter, because Gavin's just that talented. He's that gifted. He makes defenders miss so frequently and makes it look so easy.
That is true indeed. So,
Yep. So 2026 NHL draft's very top heavy. This draft is very deep. And I know we'll have rounds 2 through 7 of the 2025 NHL draft at noon in about a month from today. Final Saturday in June it will be. And we won't have any live stream until noon that day. So you can go out, you can do your errands, you can do whatever you need to do before noon that day. And it'll be nice to have that leisure, that luxury. It'll be nice to have that. And I'll play the Trump interview with Mason Rudolph. We'll play that because we got to do something to fill out the entertainment.
yeah, for sure.
But I could text Joey in a little bit, but I want to play the Trump Mason Rudolph clip. It was crazy. It's crazy how they put that together yesterday. I'm trying to find the exact clip of Trump and Mason Rudolph.
And I happen to think your Steelers, and I happen to think a really good quarterback is a man named Mason Rudolph. And I think he's going to get a big shot. He's tall, he's handsome, got a great arm. And I have a feeling he's going to be the guy. So Mason Rudolph, come up here. And also a safety who's an absolute killer, Miles Killebrew. Do you know Miles?
Killebrew is the backup to Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's why I find that comment so hilarious. Killebrew's not even a regular starter. He's the backup to Minkah Fitzpatrick. And the whole Mason Rudolph thing, it just feels like the kiss of death. You got Will Howard busting his tail, training with Ben Roethlisberger, and you got Mason Rudolph basically getting the kiss of death from our current president.
Wasn't Rudolph? Didn't he have wasn't he in a quarterback competition a few years ago? I mean,
he was competing with Will Levis last year for the starting job in Tennessee, if you remember. And then he was then he took after he took the starting QB job from Kenny Pickett. He was competing with Will Levis, and he ended up starting a few games over him mid-season, but Levis ended up getting the job back near the end of this year.
Yeah, I just see Rudolph as a career backup, and I feel that Will Howard can definitely win this. And if the Steelers, sign Aaron Rodgers,
I would probably start Will Howard week 1 now after that kiss of death from the president. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about the president, but it does sound like the president's giving Mason Rudolph the kiss of death. That's my interpretation of it. Maybe Mason will surprise us and make us look like idiots.
That could be, but I too many people are so low on Will Howard. It's like he won the national championship. He might have.
He's training with Roethlisberger and Mason Rudolph. He's going to this rally, shaking hands with Trump, trying to drum up the interest in the steel mill rally that they had in Pittsburgh yesterday.
That might be an all right strategy, but maybe it isn't. Anytime Trump endorses someone, that the media is going to jump all over it.
It's not just that. It's sometimes I know Joey's been very critical of Donald Trump's endorsements when it comes to football related news. So the fact that has happened, I mean,
yeah, it definitely cracks me up, but I just see, Will Howard going out there, and winning that starting job. Like I said, he might have looked like crap when he played for Kansas State, and everything else. But he did clean things up a little bit. He led a national championship team. All he's got is Mason Rudolph in front of him. And if they, I don't think that they're going to bring in Aaron Rodgers. I think that's just a crock of shit right there. And I think that guy should just go out and retire.
Yeah.
Personally.
I mean,
so.
I found out the president's favorite NFL team is the New England Patriots. So I do think the president is giving the Steelers the kiss of death. And I honestly need that after the Dallas Stars' embarrassing performance against Edmonton. I need something of that caliber for comic relief. It's not Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a great city, and I appreciate all the endorsements and support I get, not only from the Pirates, but the Penguins as well. So, but Steelers are the only one of those teams that doesn't give me that respect. And, I'm fine. It's not just about the respect. It's the fact that Joey hates the Steelers too. That's another component of this. And the fact that I grew up a Patriots fan when they were a pain in the ass for Steelers to deal with. Okay. Yeah. I'm still out. Should be done soon. The audio sounded much better last week, so I'm going to keep doing my thing. All right, cool. You keep doing your thing then, Joey, and in the meantime, what should we talk about?
Oh, I don't know, man. I'm a football guy. I mean, but willing to talk about anything as long as
I could talk about the odds that came out. I mean, they came out with the odds yesterday for the 2026 Stanley Cup. Carolina's the betting favorite. I don't agree with that. I think a lot, and Joey and I have been saying this for 2 years. Carolina, they've got great forwards and great goaltending, but outside of Slavin, Brett Burns and Orlov are UFAs. Who do they have on the blue line that's good? Who do they have that can defend at a high level? They don't really have anybody that can defend at a high level. I'm more confident in Florida, Edmonton, even Dallas at plus 1,200 or Florida at 750 or Edmonton at 750 is a better bet than Carolina at plus 600. I mean, Colorado's number two for the Western Conference behind Edmonton. They couldn't beat Dallas when their two best players were injured. Miro Heiskanen and Robertson were their two best players in the regular season, and they couldn't beat Dallas without those guys. So are they going to beat Dallas if those guys are healthy in the lineup in a 7-game series? I don't think so unless they get home ice in that series. And trading Mikko Rantanen backfired massively. If they had just kept him for this year and worried about the contract later, I think we might be having a Colorado-Florida Stanley Cup instead of a Florida-Edmonton Stanley Cup. But, that's something we'll never know. And maybe Edmonton still wins the series, but it's probably 3-2 Edmonton. It's probably a lot closer than what we saw with Florida-Dallas, and you could make the same argument for Winnipeg. But regardless, the only reason I did the Stanley Cup thumbnail is I had 3 thumbnails in mind. I had an NBA Finals thumbnail ready to go if the Pacers beat the Knicks on Thursday, which did not happen. That was plan A, because I really didn't want to recycle the same thumbnail with the same teams for the second year in a row. But we'll probably use the NBA thumbnail next week. And this was plan B. Plan C was if Dallas had forced a game 6, we were going to go with a Mahomes thumbnail and do like a teams of the decade type thing where we rank the best teams of the 2020s decade halfway through the decade. That was the plan C. I mean, I guess we could do that now until Joey gets here if we want. I mean, it's a fun exercise and it's not final. It's just sort of like where do things stand right now? I would argue 10A and 10B is a tie between the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Eagles, the way they performed in both Super Bowls against Mahomes is far and away more impressive than what the Celtics did against the Mavericks last year or Golden State when they lost to Golden State in 22. So if I have to give a tiebreaker, I got to go with the Eagles over the Celtics for number 10. Because they're even though they lost to Mahomes in the first Super Bowl, Hurts outplayed him in the first Super Bowl. So I would go with the Eagles over the Celtics on the tiebreaker alone.
As much as I don't care for the Eagles, I definitely probably have to agree with that. I mean, I just hate the Chiefs after after the last
I've
few
got
years.
the Edmonton Oilers at 9 right now on this list, but I do think they can move up to like number 8 or number 7 if they win a cup this decade. They got to win a cup. I know they've beaten Dallas twice in the conference finals, but they've got to win a cup. Dallas has made the conference finals 3 years in a row, and they actually did make the 2020 Stanley Cup in the COVID year where they lost to the Lightning. So I have the Stars at 8. Win a cup and we'll move you ahead of Dallas. It's very simple, Edmonton. If you win the cup this year, you'll jump Dallas. Okay? You're not going to jump Florida. Florida's won the Eastern Conference 3 years in a row, and they've been in the playoffs pretty much every year this decade outside of 2019, 2020. So Florida, I would argue Florida, they're number 7 right now. If they win another cup, they probably jump all the way up to 3 on this list because they would have back-to-back cups this decade, and they would be only one of 4 teams to do that this decade. Number 6 is a soccer team. It's the Columbus Crew. The Columbus Crew, owned by Jimmy Haslam, they won the 2020 and 2023 MLS Cups. So Columbus Crew, they do make this list. They're the only soccer team on this list, but they do come in at number 6 because they did it with 2 different head coaches, with Caleb Porter and Wilfred Nancy. Number 5 is the Dodgers. The Dodgers, they won 2 World Series this decade, but they weren't necessarily the most consistent team. And I know there's a lot of turnover in baseball, but for a team that's making as much money as the Dodgers, you would think there would be more consistency from them. I know they're like the Yankees of the West Coast, but they were not as consistent to be ranked in the top 4. The Astros, they won the 22 World Series. They made the ALCS for 8 years in a row. From 2017 to 2023, they were in the ALCS for 7 consecutive seasons. So the Astros, they come in at 4 on this list. And then right now I have the Las Vegas Aces at 3. They won back-to-back WNBA titles, and they lost the semifinals to the Liberty last year. Tampa Bay Lightning come in at 2, nearly three-peated before losing to Colorado in 22. I'm sure Colorado, your state, was fired up when the Lightning didn't three-peat, William. And then number 1 has to be the Chiefs. I know you hate them, but they've made the AFC Championship 6 years in a row. They won 3 Super Bowls this decade, and they've played in the last 3 Super Bowls, and they've got 5 Super Bowl appearances on top of that. So the Chiefs are the de facto number 1 team of the decade right now, and it's probably going to stay that way, unfortunately, unless Allen or Burrow goes on a run in the latter or Hurts. If Allen, Burrow, or Hurts or Lamar Jackson, if one of them goes on a run in the latter half of the decade where they're able to win 3 or 4 Super Bowls in 5 years, then the narrative changes. But right now it is the Chiefs. And
yeah, that's one thing about Andy Reid. Like back in the day, I wasn't sure, when he was the Eagles head coach, and he took them to, 4.
I did put the Eagles at 10. If the Bills had made a Super Bowl, they would be on this list. And here's the thing. If the Bengals prediction I made for them winning the Super Bowl comes true, they're going to be tied with both the Eagles and the Celtics for that number 10 spot on this list in a year from now. So the Bengals could very easily enter this conversation if they just win 1, because they have 2 Super Bowl appearances. They lost the Rams in 56. So if they win 1 this decade and they have that, so they would have Super Bowl 56 and they'd have Super Bowl 50, Super Bowl 60 on their resume. So that alone, in my opinion, would make the Bengals in this conversation. You could put them in this conversation as high as number 10. Maybe you give them the tiebreaker. I think it would depend. I think it would depend on who the Bengals played. If they played someone besides the Eagles, I think you could say yes. If they did play the Eagles lost. Eagles would still probably be ahead of them. That's the thing right now. But, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And I really don't think the Eastern Conference Finals is going to matter too much. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are probably going to win the NBA Finals. So I would say because I just think the Thunder with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, with Chet Holmgren, they are the best team in the NBA this year. I think the Thunder are going to win it. I don't think it matters who comes out of the East. I just think the Thunder are the better overall team, better overall roster. So, and I just think it's their time.
Yeah, I never did follow basketball, so I can't really comment on that.
Yeah. We can give Joey the luxury to talk about these topics, but he's still running errands. And I'm cool with if Joey still wants to. I think because everything ran smoother last week, he's cool with going with this format moving forward. And that's fine. We probably are going to need him for 10 a.m. when we have football shows in the fall. But since most of the football content, like the draft cycle, is over, I'm cool with giving him this vacation, like mini vacation until the actual summer, because it gives him time to run errands. It gives him time to do what he needs to do.
Yeah, Saturdays are always that day when you're trying to get stuff done, working during the week and stuff.
Exactly.
So I can definitely see that.
It's weird because I'm on 108. I think I'm on pick 118 in my NHL mock draft. I still haven't found a drop off. There's not that drop off from pick 30 to 110, and I think I've identified 74 players with. I think I identified 74 players with all-star potential in the NHL draft. I've identified 75 in the NFL draft. So the similarities between the NFL and NHL draft are just. It's very ironic that we have that many similarities this draft. And some people are saying it's a weak NHL draft. There's not a clear-cut number one pick this year. That doesn't make it a weak class. This is 4 rounds deep at least. We might be looking at 5 rounds deep. But I'm probably going to finish up round 4, and then I'm going to start working on the QMJHL draft, because we're going to have multiple streams next week. We're going to have the Tuesday stream for Under the Bleachers. The Quebec Major Junior Hockey League draft is next week. I'm pretty certain Alexis Joseph will go number 1 of the St. John Sea Dogs. I just want to see the exact date for that. I want to confirm the exact date for that, because I probably do have to set that up after I finish round 4. So it's June 6th and 7th. June 6th is next Friday. So the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League draft, it's next Friday. So, and then rounds 2 through, I only do the first round of Junior Hockey League drafts, William, because there's so much uncertainty with players and how they develop in junior hockey after the first round. And it's just, if I did 15 rounds of that, it would limit your creative ability to talk about football as well as Joey's, and I just don't think that's the direction to go in. And look, I can still do write-ups on those first-round picks, and then I'll have my homework on those players for when they become eligible for the NHL draft, whether it's in 2027 or 2028. I'll have my homework, and I'll have my notes on that player, and that's extremely beneficial.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that each year since 2019. That's why it's gotten to the point where I've already got a few write-ups for prospects in the 2028, 2029 NHL drafts after the Western Hockey League draft happened earlier this month. So that's the key to staying ahead of the curve if you want to get into hockey scouting, is you got to cover all the drafts, the USHL, the 3 drafts in Canada for hockey, and then start looking at these guys 2 or 3 years before they become draft eligible, maybe 4 in some cases, and stay ahead of the curve. That's the key. That is the key to dominating the hockey niche. And I would say that's the key to dominating the football niche as well, because if you're into high school recruits like Wes Langley is at our site, that we already get a little bit of a snapshot of what the player can bring to a team. Like, we know Bryce Underwood's going to be great at Michigan. We know that David Sanders Jr. is going to be a left tackle at Tennessee. There's also a left tackle on Oklahoma and a left tackle. Michael Fafusi, I think, is on Oklahoma, and I think Michigan is a left tackle. That's a 5-star as well. So those guys are all going to see minutes. Okay,
For sure.
I'm going to message Dion and see if he has the list up. I will read his list in the entirety on the because Dion Reed put together a top 100 list.
I definitely would like to hear that. I always like hearing that kind of stuff, and especially when it's from some of these guys that I've seen on social media and know I mean, that's always when I'm trying to cover a subject or something and I really don't know about it. It's like I
Because
pick
I know
between a few
Dion's
of the
been
people
busy
I
with
know.
work and stuff. That's why he said he'd get to it on Wednesday, but it's Saturday, and it's like he started this top 100 and he got to like 98. I think he got to 96 in Gridiron Battle Zone, but he hasn't like updated it in like a week. And I'm just curious, if you don't want to do daily updates, just give us the full list and we can go through it, help you out. But yeah, I do. Oh yeah, yesterday there was a Jimmy Foxhound tweeted this hilarious tweet. Oh gosh, don't let Browns Andrew Berry see if there's another possible cast-off quarterback he can add to a roster. And it's got Andrew Berry throwing a pokeball at Will Levis, like an actual pokeball at Will Levis, like he's Ash Ketchum.
No, I don't know what they're doing up there in Cleveland. I mean, Dylan Gabriel, I kind of seen him as a backup, and drafting him in the 3rd round is just crazy.
Joey said the Madden ratings for the Browns are extremely accurate. They've got Shadur Sanders at a 72. I had a 73 for floor grade on Sanders, 93 for potential. So the fact that the NFL actually agrees or is close to agreeing with me on Shadur for floor, I'm honored. They've got Deshaun Watson at a 70 on Madden this year. Flacco is a 68. Kenny Pickett's a 66, and Dylan Gabriel's a 62. Those are the ratings they have for the Browns QBs on Madden this year. And Joey said they were extremely accurate. So,
I mean, yeah, we both definitely got something out of Shadur. That if that's where we graded him, I had a 5th round grade on him, and then he goes in the 5th round. I was like, I was confident in figuring that he was worth a 5th round pick, but it was like I couldn't believe that the NFL actually did it. And I'm actually kind of convinced that the Browns did it, to put asses in the seats and sell
Joey
jerseys.
believes that Stefanski and Barry did it to create shock value and that they were smiling at the end. But there's also people that believe Haslam did it and overruled his scouts. And I'm in that department. You seem to be in that department as well.
Yeah, and I definitely had Shadur, graded higher than Dylan Gabriel, so I could definitely see where that ended up, going in that direction. Is just a point after signing, Kenny Pickett and still having Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco at this point is an excellent game manager, but what are they doing? I mean, this team, it's like, I don't know, they're still doing Cleveland Brown things, 30 years after they started. They've had how many? I mean, how many of these quarterbacks that they have started? I mean, it is an insane number. But, I mean, I don't know.
I'm not sure why Sports Bible Australia is posting this clickbait about Olivia Culpo, former Miss Universe. She dumped her boyfriend because he's unwilling to have sex, and it shows Tim Tebow in the background. I mean, this is not news. This is like 5 years ago, and Tebow's married. He has a kid now, so this is not really news. This is just clickbait.
Yeah, are they like trying to make fun of Tebow because, he wasn't going to have sex until he got married? I mean, that used to be a
that's
thing.
what it seems like.
I mean, I don't know, man. I can't knock the kid, for whatever values that he has. I mean, I can knock him for that looping throwing motion he had, I mean, but but never for their values about how they feel about someone. I don't know, man. They're like turning this into where they're making all these celebrities, have something to do or sports to do with celebrities, or like trying to tie it together and make it news. And it's like, man, I don't want to see any of that crap out there. I mean, it's like, let football be football, and celebrities just go jump off a cliff somewhere.
Okay. This is a big list of Pittsburgh. 76 Rite Aid locations are closing, and anybody who has medication at Rite Aid in this region, your medication's now going to be at Giant Eagle, place my mom works at. So, yeah, you are going to have to go to Giant Eagle if you live in Pittsburgh like me, and you have medical prescriptions at Rite Aid now, because they've closed.
They closed where I was at, 2 or 3 years ago. So I guess they're probably going even further down jumping off a cliff like I was just talking about.
Well, the Divine Road version in Wexford, where I used to live, that one has not been affected. But the one in Slippery Rock, the one in Ross Township, the one in Marshall Township, I figured, Marshall Township is the one in Divine Road. Yeah, so never mind. I was originally correct when I said that one closed. So, yeah, all of these Rite Aids are being affected by this. But you still have Walgreens, you still have actually no, you don't have CVS, but you have Walgreens and you have Giant Eagle, and everywhere else you're out of luck.
Damn it, can't get your drugs, man. It's no good.
Yeah.
I have to go to another pharmacy.
I'm looking here. I know Ohio State opens up with Texas and Georgia. They play Georgia, I think. Ohio State plays Georgia this year. I thought it was a joke. I think Georgia plays Ohio State, and it is going Georgia versus Ohio State 2025. I thought they played this year.
I was watching some film. What was it yesterday? I can't remember what player it was they were playing against. Ohio State. It was
it's Grambling. It's not Georgia. It's Grambling State. I got the Grambling State logo and the Georgia logo mixed up. I thought Georgia was going to Columbus and they were airing it on the Big Ten Network, but it's Grambling State. That's so disappointing. I actually thought Ohio State and Georgia were playing each other. But this is weird. This FBS schedules has Penn State at number 1. They have Ohio State at 2, and they have Texas at 3.
Oh,
I would put Ohio State at 1 and Texas at 2 and Penn State at 3.
Yeah, I would too.
It's not that Penn State can't be number 1. It's just they haven't done enough to earn that distinction yet. Haven't beaten Ohio State head-to-head, whether it's home or on the road. And
I guess
they lost Notre Dame in the semifinals of the college football playoff.
Maybe it's because their quarterback didn't leave.
It's because Aller's back, and it's because Singleton's back at running back. That's probably why they're number 1.
At least that's the first thing that definitely pops into mind. Howard's gone, Ewer's gone, so.
Yeah, most of the CBS games are terrible because CBS doesn't even get the best game in the Big Ten. They get like the 3rd best game. They do get Michigan, Nebraska, Bryce Underwood versus Dylan Raiola in Lincoln. That's actually a good game for CBS to get. That's better than any game CBS aired last year in the 3:30 time slot.
Quarterbacks are king, man.
Because you have Bryce Underwood versus Dylan Raiola, the Nebraska QB, and it's in Lincoln, Nebraska. So that's a better quarter. That's probably the best game CBS has gotten under the new Big Ten deal.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch that game.
Because that's a good game. That's a good game. That's a game I'll actually tune into on CBS, but the schedule for CBS is just awful. The first 4, it's not a great schedule. I'll
Well,
give
yeah,
I'll give
and
Joey until 11. If he's not here by 11, we're gonna jump into the NFL games for Week 15. I'm being patient. I'm being as patient as I can be, William. Believe me, I'm
definitely
being very
understandable.
patient. But I think after
Definitely
last,
understandable.
yeah. But let's see here.
I was trying to remember where we were, and it is week 15.
Yeah, it is Week 15. That's where we're at. But yes, the CBS game for Week 1 is Nevada at Penn State, and Penn State's number 1, apparently, according to FBS schedules. Ohio State's 5. Who's number 2 then? Georgia's 4th. So if Georgia's 4, Texas is 3, Penn State's 1, Ohio State's 5. Who the hell is number 2? Clemson?
Oh,
Really? Clemson's number 2?
now they're just going after the quarterback ratings, because they've got Klubnik. That's actually, like I said, quarterback's a king, but damn, dude,
Well,
that's
week
not something
week
you do
1
for
we get
rankings.
LSU at Clemson, Nussmeier versus Klubnik. I'm guessing that's going to be at Bank of America Stadium. I mean, where else would they play that game?
Yeah, I definitely want to see that game too. I love Nussmeier, and I'm intrigued by Klubnik.
No, Clemson's playing a home and home with Clemson in 25 and 26. So Clemson will go to Death Valley in 2026, and LSU's actually going to travel to Clemson. So it's the Death Valley game in 2025. Clemson hosting, and then LSU hosting in 2026. So that is actually a home game for Clemson. That's big. So that's probably the college game day game of the week, week 1. Fresno State plays Kansas. Kansas State plays Iowa State in Dublin, Ireland. That actually might be a fun game. And the Lee Corso Swan song is going to be Ohio State, Texas. So Ohio State, Texas is going to air at noon on Fox, big noon kickoff. Duquesne actually plays Pitt in football. I know Duquesne and Pitt both have respectable soccer programs, but Duquesne and Pittsburgh, Duquesne's in downtown Pittsburgh, and the Pitt Panthers' actual college campus is in Oakland, which is a few miles out from downtown Pittsburgh. But both Duquesne and Pitt are going to go to Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium, in a no-care game for anyone outside of that region. But Texas, Ohio State is the opener. The 3:30 game is Nevada, Penn State. That is not an exciting game. Alabama plays Florida State on ABC. And Syracuse is playing Tennessee in Atlanta on ABC. So the ABC triple header for August 30th is Syracuse, Tennessee, which I think is a horrible matchup. Now that Imaleva entered the portal, that is a horrible game to have in Atlanta with McCord gone. That's just not a good matchup to have. But I think Ohio State, Texas is going to be the popular game at noon. And then the 3:30 game, I think, will probably be Florida State, Alabama. And it's not a great 3:30 game, but it's probably the best game in the 3:30 slot. Because you got number 9 Alabama going to Florida State, going to Tallahassee, going in that environment. So
Yeah, and Florida State definitely has to do something to pull out of what happened last year,
But yeah, this is the thing. For that first week, the only games that stand out are LSU, Clemson, and Ohio State, Texas, as far as ranked games go. Notre Dame does play Miami in the U. That could be fun. Notre Dame versus Miami, Florida in the U at Hard Rock Cafe Stadium. That could be a fun Sunday night game on ABC. So I like those 3 games for week 1, but the rest of the games kind of stink.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I
Let's
seem
see what we got
distracted.
for
I
week.
opened my computer and there's a whole bunch of windows open that shouldn't be open.
We'll get to week 2, and then we're gonna jump into the week 15 games. We've been patient enough. But yeah, we'll see what happens here, because I mean, week 2 of college football does not look as exciting. I'm just looking. Michigan plays Oklahoma on ABC. Bryce Underwood, he's going to go to Norman, Oklahoma, take on the Sooners. That's going to be the game of the week in week 2. It's 20 versus 25 or something, I believe. I believe Michigan is number. I believe Michigan's 20 and Oklahoma's number 25 in the top 25. So that's the game of the week for week 2. Nobody else is ranked that's playing each other that week. So I was quick. I did not think week 2 would be that quick. All right, what do we got for week 3? As far as ranked games go, we've got Georgia and Tennessee. Georgia-Tennessee is usually a November-December game. The fact that it's this early in week 3, Georgia at Tennessee, it's a good game, but it throws a lot of people off. And Texas A&M plays Notre Dame and South Bend that week too. Florida also plays LSU on ABC. So week 3 actually does look better. Week 3 is actually impressive compared to weeks 1. Compared to week 2, week 3 just looks a lot better. We got time for week 4. We'll see what we got for week 4 in college football. We got Michigan, Nebraska, 3:30 on CBS. But a lot of the games for week 4 are to be announced. Florida plays Miami, Florida in Miami. That's probably going to be the primetime game if both teams are still unbeaten by that point, but a time slot has not been scheduled for that game. But I would think that's going to be the game that probably they put in primetime because they have not ABC has not decided what game they're going to put in primetime yet. And Illinois plays Indiana in week 4 too. That is probably going to be the big noon kickoff game because Fox has not decided what game they want to do for big noon kickoff. But I would imagine Illinois, Indiana, if both those teams are still ranked in week 4, that's the big noon game. And Florida, Miami is probably the primetime game on ABC with the Hurricanes hosting the Gators. Because I really can't see them going any other route.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just trying to catch up here. Let's see.
10:58. We've got 2 minutes. I'll quickly glance at week 5. I really don't want to look this far ahead with the college football schedule. I am just killing time until Joey gets here. I'll admit it. I'm guilty of that just as much as the next person, but, Okay, so LSU plays Ole Miss, and Alabama plays Georgia. Alabama, Georgia is probably going to be the primetime game, and they'll probably put LSU, Ole Miss at 3:30, if I had to guess. But both of those will be on ABC. And there's no other ranked games for week 6 at the moment. That's kind of surprising for week 5. I did not think this would go by so quickly. How many ranked games are there for week 6? Clemson plays North Carolina on the road. Texas plays Florida in week 6. The Gators are the home team. But that's the only ranked game for week 6 at the moment. Jeez, are we actually going to have time to get to week 7? I mean, this is just... Week 1 and week 3 are the only good weeks. Week 4 does have potential, but we don't know what's going to happen as far as the scheduling goes. Indiana plays Oregon in week 7. Ohio State plays Illinois. South Carolina plays Missouri. Florida plays Texas A&M. So there are a few fun games for week 7. I'm a little bit encouraged, but yeah, Oklahoma plays Texas at 3:30 on ABC in week 7. So week 7, week 1, week 3, week 4 look like the best weeks, and then the rest of the weeks don't look very good. But I'm gonna load up the schedules for I'm gonna load up these schedules, William. I'm gonna load up these schedules here for week. All right, let's All right, so week 15, the first game slated for week 15 is no, that's not the first game slated for week 15 is the Thursday night game. It's the Buccaneers hosting the Falcons. I picked the Buccaneers to win this game. This puts the Buccaneers at I think I have the Buccaneers ending up winning the division, but I have them at 9-8. Joey has the Bucs at 10-3. I know you and Joey are both picking the Buccaneers to beat the Falcons at home.
Oh yeah,
I'm not even going to waste any more breath on that.
They are so deep at the wide receiver position now after drafting, Emeka, Boca, and just having those players. I mean, this offense with Mayfield settling in is just way too much.
I've got the Bucs finishing 9-8, but I do have the Buccaneers going to the NFC title game, losing the Lions, and then I have them winning the NFC next year and playing the Bills in Super Bowl 61. So I do think there's a window there, a 2-year window, where they are just going to dominate, and it's going to start this year. The Browns play the Bears. I think the Bears just have more weapons than the Browns. It's not. I picked the Bears to win this. Shadur could not beat Caleb in college, and the Bears just have more weapons than the Browns. That's the other thing.
Too many weapons.
They do, like Roma Dunze, Luther Burden. I know the Browns have weapons too. Joey would argue they have Jerry Jeudy and they have Tillman. That's true, but they don't have a good slot receiver. They went from Elijah Moore to whoever they end up playing in the slot this year, and you got Loveland and Cole Met. I do like the Njoku Harold Fan and tight end tandem, but I like the Colson Loveland Cole Met tandem a little bit more. And even if somebody on the Bears gets injured, I think the Bears have better stability at tackle. Like they have Braxton Jones in a contract year. They have Ozzie Trapillo as the swing tackle, and they've got Darnell Wright entering year 3 at right tackle. I think those tackles, I still think Myles Garrett can get 1.5 sacks, but he's not going to get 3 or 4 sacks against the Bears like Joey's used to seeing Myles Garrett get against this team. They're going to be better. They're going to do a better job protecting Caleb. We both got the Bears winning this one because of the weapons, not because of Caleb, but because they're just going to have too many weapons for the Browns to game plan against. And, with
Tyler Badgett, as a backup, if Caleb screws up, I think he is a good player that came out of a small school, and you mentioned Colson Loveland, he's the best tight end that I've actually ever evaluated. And then we can't forget, even having depth like Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. He is a hard running little tailback. And I mean, even if they have injuries in their skill positions, they're still going to, have some players that are capable, very capable of stepping up. So yeah, I'd definitely take the Bears on this one.
Yep, the Ravens play the Bengals in Cincinnati, and I think Montez Sweat has multiple sacks against DeJuan Jones, really knocked Shadur into the ground, but the Bengals just have too many weapons. They're not going to, even if the Ravens win on Thanksgiving, they're not going to sweep the Bengals. Bengals should win this game, and yeah, that puts the Ravens now at 7-7, and with all these teams at 7-6 jockeying for playoff seeding.
Yeah,
who did I take? Why is this at week 16? Let's go back a week. Who did I take in the Cardinals-Texans game? I took the Texans. But yeah, that game's in Houston. I know you're a lot higher on C.J. Stroud than Kyler Murray. And both quarterbacks kind of have to win this game to stay in the wild card race. But the Cardinals have a little bit of breathing room. The Texans have absolutely no breathing room, not in the division race, not in the wild card. So I think you're going to go with the Texans here.
this is a tough game to pick. I mean, the Cardinals are definitely underrated. Like I mentioned last week, they started out with great last year, but yeah, I'll definitely take the Texans. Stroud understands. After a little slump in his sophomore year, that he's got to do something, and I'll take the Texans in this one.
The Jets in Jacksonville. It's Justin Fields versus Trevor Lawrence. It's in Jacksonville. The Jaguars are hosting. I did take the Jaguars. If this game was in New York, probably would take the Jets, but I did take the Jaguars at home.
At home, I'm gonna have to take the Jets in this one. I feel that Justin Fields is going to, make something of himself in this league, but I don't know why he went to the Jets, but probably because of the skill positions that they have, and that he would be the clear starter.
Yeah.
So I would, as much it pains me, I'll take the Jets.
Yeah. The Chargers head to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. It's a big game, a game with the division on the line. And as much as you'd like to take the Chargers, this game was in LA. You probably would take them, but it's in Kansas City. And the game the Chargers host is in Brazil. So the Chiefs sort of reap the benefits here, I'd say. But, we'll see what happens.
I mean, the Chargers, they have a couple of good running backs coming in Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton.
If they can get something against this stout run defense, they might be able to steal this game, but I think it's just going to be very hard to run the ball in the Chiefs, and they kind of expect them to run. And I think the Chiefs are more suspect in the pass defense than the run defense. So,
in the upset special, just because I feel I'm probably going to lose this one, though, I will take the Chargers.
All right. The Bills play the Patriots. They have to win this game to keep the top seed.
The Bills and the Patriots, I mean, that is a great matchup with, Drake May and Josh Allen. I mean, it's going to be a real tough one, but because I love both those quarterbacks, I definitely have to go with the Bills, though, just because of their farther out of a rebuild than the Patriots are.
The Commanders play the Giants in New York. This is a game I could see the Giants winning. I took the Commanders, though. I just don't have any confidence in the Giants this year.
Agreed. The Commanders, I agree.
The Raiders play the Eagles in Philly.
Definitely the Eagles. I don't know what the Raiders are doing, but
yeah. The Packers play the Broncos. It's in Denver late in the year.
Give me the Broncos in this one. I think Bo Nix is, going to show why they took him in the first round.
Yep. The Lions and the Rams. It's in LA. But I think I took the Lions. Or did I take I took the Lions to beat the Rams in LA.
Yeah, the Lions are going to be too much for them.
This is interesting, though. The Lions, they beat the Rams head-to-head, so they move up to the 3 seed. Only a game back of the Eagles and Buccaneers. The Panthers and Saints in New Orleans. I took the Panthers to beat the Saints. If Hayner or Rattler starting, the Saints win this, but if they're going to go with Tyler Show, who's the projected starter, give me the Panthers. And basically, it's the uncertainty of who the Saints are starting more than Bryce Young or anything else. It's the uncertainty of who the Saints are starting. That's why I picked against them in so many games.
Yeah. I'm not sure why they picked Tyler Shug in the second round. That is just a complete screw up.
Yep.
You know, and
And the Seahawks with Sam Darnold, they should beat the Colts pretty easily with Daniel Jones filling in for Richardson. Williams going to take his Niners to beat the Titans. So that leaves us with the two Monday night games, or no, the Sunday night games, Vikings, Cowboys in Dallas. If it's 2-11 versus 3-10, I can guarantee you that's getting flexed. That's probably going to get flexed for Lions, Rams, or Packers, Broncos. But Fox would probably protect Lions, Rams. CBS is probably going to protect Chiefs, Chargers, or Bills, Patriots. So one of those games probably does get flexed, but I'm not going to speculate on that right now. It's J.J. McCarthy versus Dak Prescott in Dallas. This is tough because I know you're not a big fan of either of these teams.
Yeah, and either of what they're doing. Give me the Vikings over the Cowboys. You know, as much as J.J. McCarthy, I feel he is.
And the Monday night game is Dolphins Steelers in Pittsburgh. So I'm guessing with Will Howard starting, you are taking the Steelers to win on Monday night.
Actually, no. I mean, I feel that Miami has more of a idea of what they're doing than the Steelers do.
Interesting. Who would be the final wild card if the Steelers won, though? The Chiefs. Dun dun dun. That's another reason why. That's another reason why you're picking the Dolphins. But I do think, yeah, it's like Operation Dolphins win out now, so the Chiefs miss the playoffs. That's probably what you're thinking at this point. But hey, I'll show you guys the screen for Week 15. I'll share the screen briefly so you guys can see the updated playoff standings here. So with 3 games left, the Dolphins and Broncos have just supplanted the Chiefs. Seahawks and Cardinals have the last 2 wild cards. There's a bunch of 7-7 teams jockeying. I'm going to pull up Week 16 on my tab, and I've got the Rams sweeping Seattle. I'm guessing you're taking the Seahawks here to make this interesting. As much as you don't want to, you're taking the Seahawks to win at home.
I actually will. I like some of the pieces they have. Zach Charbonnet, I mean, he's going to be a great back there. I mean, I believe Kenneth Walker is running out of his contract this year or next.
Yep.
And they also have Damian Martinez. I watched some film on him yesterday, and the dude actually runs with a little bit of power, so.
Agreed. Next game is Packers-Bears. It's in Chicago. I'm guessing you're taking
the Bears
Packers.
Ever win this one?
What?
I mean, do the Bears ever win this one?
They did win it last year, but it was.
I was going to say,
Week 18 game with the backups in Green Bay. I'm guessing you're taking the Packers though, because the Bears are 5-9, Packers are 7-7. They're a game out of the playoffs. I'm guessing you're taking the Packers to move to 8-7, and then the Eagles play the Commanders. Commanders can keep the Eagles from winning the NFC East with a win, so I'm guessing you're going to take the Commanders.
Oh man,
or do you want
actually rough versus that defensive line of the Eagles?
Yeah, but it's in Washington. They're the home team.
Yeah, I'll take the Commanders.
All right. The Ravens play the Patriots. It's in Baltimore. The Ravens are outside the top 7. They need to win this game. Urgency to win this is just much greater for the Ravens than it is for the Patriots. And the Patriots, I believe, they get the Jets in Week 18 in New York, and they also get the they get the Dolphins. They get the Jets on the road, and they get the Dolphins. I think they're going to win both of those games to end the year, but they're probably going to lose this one. And I'm guessing you're going to go with the Ravens at home against the Patriots.
Give me the Patriots. Actually, upset special.
So the Patriots improved to 10-5, and the Ravens are 7-8 now. But Browns are probably also going to fall to 7-8. They host the Bills. It's in Cleveland, but the Bills are just better than the Browns.
Yeah.
And Joe even acknowledged that. Buccaneers play the Panthers in Carolina. I do have the Panthers winning this game, seizing control of first place, but I do have the Buccaneers winning the division in Week 18 against Carolina. I mean, Buccaneers, if they win this game in Carolina, the Buccaneers can take over as the 1 seed.
Give me the Buccaneers, man.
All right, so the Buccaneers. Chargers play the Cowboys in Dallas. This does feel like a game the Chargers would lose.
It does, if they're on the road. And
yeah.
However, I'm not sure what
I did pick the Cowboys to win this game.
Give me the Chargers.
Okay, the Jets at 7-7 play the Saints at 2-12 in New Orleans. Did I pick the Saints to pull the upset here? Yes, I did. I did pick the Saints to pull the upset here.
Oh man, yeah. Give me the Jets.
This is great. So the Saints, the Vikings, and the Giants.
Oh, that's a rough one too.
I took the Giants in the upset.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
They're the home
Giants.
And the Chiefs are going to beat the Titans in Tennessee. As much as you'd like to see Cam Ward beat the Chiefs, he has not played a defense of this caliber. That's going to help the Chiefs.
Agreed.
So the Chiefs are 8-7. The Cardinals are going to rebound with a win against Atlanta. If this game was in Atlanta, I'd take Penix. It's in Arizona. Give me the Cardinals.
Cardinals for sure.
Yep. So that leaves Jaguars, Broncos in Denver. And I know you're taking the Broncos.
Yes, sir. I will definitely go with that.
Lions play the Steelers. I don't think I even need to ask, but yeah, Raiders play the Texans in Houston. Stroud's going to win this. The Bengals play the Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. I actually took the Dolphins in the upset, but I'm guessing you're going to take the Bengals. But this is a hard game for you to pick between.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they are in the rankings, but yeah, give me the Bengals.
All right. So, and then the final game for your 49ers, they play the Colts. So, right now the 49ers are 9-6, but they are outside the top 7 with 2 weeks left to go. So, looking at the simulator, the Bills, they have the 1 seed. The Bengals are the 2 seed. The Texans are 3. The Chargers are 4. The Patriots are 5. The Broncos are 6. And the Chiefs have moved back into the last wild card at number 7. Buccaneers have moved into the 1 slot. The Lions have moved into number 2. The Eagles have moved into 3. The Rams have moved into 4. Seahawks, Commanders are 5. Cardinals are 6. Seahawks are 7. So that's what you got here, and then final 2 weeks of the season. Okay. And then I'll load the Week 17 tab. So, and then we'll pick those games. So, I did take the Commanders at home. They are playing the Cowboys on Thursday Night Football.
Wait, repeat. Oh, Cowboys and Commanders?
Yeah, it's in Washington. It's a Thursday night game.
Yeah, give me Washington.
And then Detroit plays the Vikings in Minnesota. I took the Lions.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And then Broncos play the Chiefs at Arrowhead.
Oh, at Arrowhead?
Yeah. Arrowhead's just a tough place to win in. As good as Bo Nix is.
I already picked the Chiefs losing 1 game at Arrowhead, and I can't do it again.
Wait, who won the first meeting between these teams earlier in Joey's simulation? I'm just curious. I'm double checking because I don't remember who won the first head-to-head meeting between these two teams. The Chiefs are not getting swept by Denver as much as you'd like to see that. Okay, Joey did pick the Chiefs to beat the Broncos in Denver, 17-15. So we'll go with Denver this time to split it up to make it a little bit more even.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I was going to say if the Broncos had won the first game, there is no way we can have the Chiefs getting swept because that's just not realistic. But since the Chiefs won the first game in Denver, Denver steals this one in Arrowhead.
I love these rivalry games though because
Seahawks versus the Panthers in Carolina. We got to give Bryce Young a win if we want to give the 49ers any shot of making the playoffs, William. We have to. Okay. Or we have to if we give Seattle a win and the Bengals a win, would that put the 49ers in? Yes, it would. For now. Okay, so we'll do that. I've got the Cardinals upsetting the Bengals, by the way, in mind. So
I like that. I do like that.
So you're actually going with the Cardinals to upset. So yeah, this is brutal though. The Ravens are 7-8. They head to Lambeau. I mean, I got the Packers winning. Lamar has not played in an environment like Green Bay in the freezing cold this late in the year.
Yeah, this is a real tough game, but we have the Ravens are so far down on the. I mean, they're like 7-8 or something.
So 7-8.
Oh man, give me the Ravens as much as that argument.
28-24. It's very interesting. The Texans and Chargers in LA. Chargers get revenge on the Texans for last year's wild card. The Giants and Raiders. I've got the Raiders winning this game. Steelers and Browns in Cleveland. I did take the Browns to win this game. In this scenario, it's Shadur Sanders versus Will Howard.
It's just between these two teams here, it depends so much who the quarterback is, you know. I mean, so it's kind of rough having them. I'm going to take the Steelers in this one. I think I'll be starting Will Howard.
Yep. Jaguars, Colts, Lawrence versus Daniel Jones in Indy.
Give me the Colts and Daniel Jones.
Okay. Baker Mayfield versus Tua in Miami. This is a must-win game for both teams. The Buccaneers. Well, I don't know. Can the Buccaneers lose a game? If the Buccaneers do own the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Lions, Dolphins actually need this more. Okay, Joey's here, so we're almost on to week 18 so far here. But it's interesting to say what's happening here. It's Buccaneers and it's Dolphins. Who do you got in this one, Joey?
I got the Buccaneers, and I'm sorry for my later rival. A car ended up on its top again, and traffic was backed up something awful.
No worries.
I got the Buccaneers here. I think Baker balls out, and I'm not sure if Tua plays in this game because he might be out with another concussion.
This is interesting, though. The Patriots and the Jets. Patriots beat the Jets again. I think they're going to beat the Jets again. And then that leaves the Saints and the Titans. So the Saints 2-13. The Titans are 5-10. Titans are probably going to win this game at home. And then
they probably do.
Eagles play the Bills in Buffalo.
Give me the Bills.
Yeah, I agree. The Bills are going to win this game at home. Remember, the last time the Bills played the Eagles, it was in Philadelphia. The Eagles won in overtime, and Jesse Waters declared the Eagles Super Bowl champions for Super Bowl 58, which led to the Eagles. Yeah, because last year it was the Steelers who were the victims of the Fox News jink, and then the year before that it was the Eagles. So, I mean, Bills have to get revenge for that, so the Bills are going to win this one. If it was in Philly, maybe the Eagles would win again, but I'm guessing the Bills win this one because both teams, the Eagles losing means the Commanders take the division lead, and if the Bills lose, it means the Bengals would potentially jump them for the 1 seed. But I'm guessing Joey's going to pick the Bills to beat the Eagles at home. And then that leaves Bears, 49ers, and San Francisco, which would involve the 49ers winning. And
I just want to make a quick note in case anybody who hasn't been following OTAs, but, you know, Chris, I've been talking to you privately about Joe Sanders, but man, have you guys seen Cam work? He's been lighting it up.
he has. And then Rams, Falcons in Atlanta. It's Rams. Okay, so here's what we've got. William did do weeks 15 through 17 before you arrived, but here's what we've got with one regular season game left in the simulator. The Bills are the 1 seed still. The Bengals are 2. The Chargers are 3rd at 10-6. The Texans are 4th at 9-7. They've clinched the division. The Jags are 7-9. So the Texans are 9-7. The Patriots are 11-5. The Broncos are 10-6 after a road win in Arrowhead, and the 7 seed currently belongs to the Chiefs at 8-8. So it's the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Dolphins, and Jets are all 8-8 entering week 18. The Browns are 7-9, but they do get the Bengals. It's in Cincy. They can. Well, I think the first game was in Cleveland. This one's in Cincy, but that's going to be tough because I don't think the Browns are eliminated, but they would need to win. They would probably need everybody who's 8-8 or lower to lose. And I don't know if that's mathematically possible. Well, that game that's in Cleveland. This is in Cincinnati. The Week 18 game's in Cincinnati, but still.
But still, it's like he has had the Bengals number. So I think with that, and because I do think Joe Sanders is going to be starting this game, I'll take the Browns. If it was like Kenny Pickett, who has been absolutely atrocious.
I just want to see if the Browns even make the playoffs, even if every team who's 8-8. Let's say we have a 5-way tie for 8-9. Do the Browns get in that scenario, or do they not get in? I'm just curious. I'm genuinely curious to see what ends up happening here. So.
About that same thing with actual facts, but if you want to come right out and say it,
I just want to go through the simulator and find out what the truth is. Broncos, Chargers in LA. It's in Denver. Broncos, Chargers in Denver. Whoever wins this gets the AFC West. So it's either Herbert or Bo Nix ends up. That is a hard one because.
Oh man. In that situation, you know, I mean, I would probably definitely take the Broncos.
I'd take the Chargers. Let me see who I took for Week 18. I thought
you know, it's 2 relevant coaches.
I took the Chargers and William took the Broncos, so you hold the tiebreaker here, Joey.
I'll side with William on this.
All right. Texans beat the Colts. Titans and Jaguars. This is pretty much. We'll give the Titans the win here. It's Week 18. Yeah. Neither team can make the playoffs. Both teams finished 7-10. and the Titans move into second. Cardinals, Rams for the division in LA. Rams probably going to win that one. What happens in a hypothetical where all the 8 and 9 teams lose? It's just, again, this is a hypothetical here. So this is a hypothetical here. The Chiefs still get in at 8 and 9. So even if the Browns beat the Bengals and everybody goes 8 and 9, Chiefs still get in at 8 and 9. If the Chiefs, Browns, Dolphins, Ravens, and Jets all go 8 and 9, Chiefs get in the playoffs, and the Browns Week 18 win was for nothing. I just wanted to find out what would happen hypothetically. So really didn't even matter, which kind of sucked. We're really going to blame the refs for do you think the Raiders can beat the Chiefs in LA or Las Vegas? Do you think the Raiders can beat the Chiefs in Las Vegas to end the year? I'm just curious.
I think they can.
All comes down to Jesse and whether he has the rookie season we think he may have, because I think he's going to be one of the top 2 running backs this year when it comes to rookies. So, along with Quinshon Judkins, and I think they're both going to get a lot of carries. The question is, what is he going to do with those carries? He does what we think he can do with that volume, then yes, I think that the Raiders can be cheap. If he doesn't, then no, they don't stand a chance.
I think the Raiders can actually pull the upset. They, of all the rivalry games, the AFC West, I mean, these teams, no matter what the records are, they go up against each other, and either team can actually, win. Gino is a good game manager. That's all I see him as. That's all he's ever really been.
Yep. So we got 2 more games left. They're both division games. Commanders, Eagles. This is for the NFC East. And then you got Seahawks, 49ers. This is the 10-6. This is for a wild card spot. So it's in San Francisco. I've got Williams Niners winning this one.
Yes, sir. I definitely have my Niners beating the Seahawks. I mean,
so the Niners move into that 6th slot, and then the Commanders-Eagles game in Philadelphia. I'm guessing. Interesting.
I don't know if that means anything, but I think
it means you've screwed Williams 49ers out of the playoffs, Joey. Congratulations. The Cardinals now edge out the 49ers for the final wild card because of your upset. Congratulations. You just hurt Williams' feelings.
There's always next year, man. There's always next year.
It's fun. We're having fun here. And then we've got the Commanders-Eagles game for the NFC East division. It's in Philly, so I'm guessing you're taking Philly to win the division?
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, sounds like we're all taking the Eagles. So,
Yes, sir.
all right. So looking at the simulation.
If it was in Washington, I would take Washington, but since it's in Philly, I'd take Philly.
Yeah, and the Commanders won the Week 16 matchup. So here are the final playoff matchups in Joey's simulator, folks. We've got the Bills as the 1 seed at 15-2. The Bengals are the 2 seed at 12-5. The Broncos are the 3 seed at 11-6. The Texans are 10-7. The Patriots are 12-5. The Chargers are 10-7. And the 8-9 Chiefs get in because the Browns finished 8-9 as well as the Chiefs. The Dolphins finished 8-9 after losing to New England. The Jets finished 8-9 after losing to Buffalo. The Ravens finished 8-9 after losing to the Steelers in Pittsburgh, where Lamar can't seem to win. So with these 8-9 tiebreakers, the Chiefs get in at 8-9. I'm just curious, if we gave Jacksonville the win over Tennessee at home, would that alter anything? Nope. The Chiefs still get in at 8-9.
Too bad.
So really, that's what it comes down to. And yeah, basically.
Well, I know this isn't in the simulator, but I got to ask you guys, because I've been hearing some rumors, and I want to know from your perspective, the Chiefs finish 8-9 in these simulators, what happens if they get Nick Chubb and reunite Chubb and Hunt? Does that give them an extra win? Maybe 2? Does that cement things? What's that do?
The Chiefs, they finished 8-9. I don't know if I can go through the games and see. William gave the Chargers a road win over the Chiefs. He gave the Broncos a road win over the Chiefs, and the Chiefs got a Week 16 win against the Titans, 31-17 in Tennessee. So, and then they won in Week 18. Then they lost in Week 18 to the Raiders. So the Chiefs did finish 1-3 to end the year, but still made the playoffs.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like, Nick Chubb would make much of a difference in those last 4 games. So, but yeah, it was just a question. I thought it was an interesting one.
I mean, it is interesting. You got Patriots, Texans in Houston, Chargers at Broncos in Denver, a rematch of the Week 18 game in the wild card, and then you got Mahomes at 8-9 versus Burrow. So those are Joey's wild card games, and then we've got the NFC. We've got Seahawks at Rams in LA, Commanders and Eagles in Philly, Part 3, and then the Cardinals and Lions in Detroit. So those are the official wild card games in Joey's simulator. But I'm going to go through my games first, and then we'll get to Joey's for the wild card round. All right, starting things off, I'm going to be as realistic about this as possible. What would be the 4 p.m. game on a Saturday in this scenario? Because we got Patriots, Bengals, Ravens, Texans, Chargers, Chiefs, Cardinals, Buccaneers, 49ers, Rams, Packers, Eagles. What is the 4:20 game on a Saturday? I would say it's Chargers, Chiefs is probably the NBC game. That's probably the NBC game using this format.
My buddy Michael's favorite time, 4:20 on a Saturday. I mean, he probably had the best time of his life.
Yeah. I'm just thinking here because I know they put they put Ravens Steelers on Amazon Prime. That's probably what they would do with 49ers Rams in this scenario. That would probably be the 8:30 game on Amazon Prime. So if the Chiefs Chargers are eliminated and the 49ers by process of elimination, what's the first game to air at 4 on a Saturday? I know last year Eagles Packers was a 4:25 game on a Sunday. I don't want to put that on a Sunday again, so we're going to kick the playoffs off with that game in the 4:25 slot. Bengals Patriots can be the 1 p.m. game. We'll put Ravens Texans on Monday Night Football, and then we'll have the Cardinals Buccaneers in the 4 p.m. slot for Sunday. That works. So the first 2 games.
How the Ravens and Texans would actually draw, because let's face it.
Well, they've put the Buccaneers on Monday night for multiple years now, Joey. So I just think you have to mix it up. You have to mix it up and make it a little bit more.
It's just you get the up-and-coming quarterback, and you have the quarterback that's had a bunch of.
You want to put that game on Sunday afternoon with Brady calling it. So that's. So basically, here's what we've got. Packers, Eagles is going to be the NBC Saturday afternoon game. 49ers, Rams is going to be the Saturday night game on Amazon Prime. Bengals, Patriots will be the 1 p.m. game on CBS. It'll also be the Nickelodeon Slime game. It'll be a 1 p.m. game. Or Buccaneers, Cardinals can be the 1 p.m. game on Fox. And then you can have Patriots, Bengals in the afternoon on CBS. But either way, yeah.
I find this.
I'm debating.
It's interesting because the teams really aren't the teams that must watch much TV this year.
In my scenario, we'll get to your scenario in a second, but for my scenario, the Fox game, the NBC game, Eagles, Packers in Philly, It's a rematch of last year's playoffs, but the Packers win this time around. And the 7-seed Packers, they knock off the 2-seed Eagles. And the Packers move on to Detroit. And then we have the Saturday night game. We have more drama, more upsets. Williams 49ers beat the Rams in LA after getting swept by the Rams in the regular season. The 49ers get their revenge in the playoffs, and it is San Francisco moving on. And that means the winner of tomorrow night, that means the winner of Arizona Tampa Bay hosts San Francisco in the divisional round. So it raises the stakes that Kyler Murray Baker Mayfield game, because now the winner gets an extra home game against Brock Purdy in the next round.
Not only that, but I love the dynamic between those two. They are good friends. But also, it's not really a surprise that Williams' team would win, because I have made a living on picking the third game these teams play. If one team wins twice in the regular season, 9 times out of 10 they're going to lose in the third game.
Yep.
Period. That's it. Beating a team 3 times in one season is nearly impossible as history shows.
Yep.
So, William, congratulations. Your team avenged everything in one night. One afternoon, sorry.
Yep. And then the Sunday afternoon game, the Nickelodeon Slime game, it is awful. Bengals blow out the Patriots. It gets so ugly that Nickelodeon decides to slime Mike Vrabel in a blowout. It's not cool if they actually do this in real life, but Bengals actually win this game, and they move on to play. Well, we don't know who they're going to play yet, because we don't know what's going to happen in the 2 afternoon games. But the Buccaneers-Cardinals game, Buccaneers are going to win this. Kyler Murray's going to put up a valiant effort, but the Buccaneers are going to win 27-24 at the end on a last-second field goal. And then the Sunday night game is Chargers-Chiefs in Arrowhead, and the Chiefs are going to go 3-0 against the Chargers. They're going to beat the Chargers in Brazil. They're going to beat the Chargers in Arrowhead, and then they're going to beat the Chargers in Arrowhead again. So the Chiefs actually do pull off the 3-0 against division rival thing in this scenario, but the Rams do not. And that...
I will say this. Most teams don't have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes just sitting around. Andy Reid, Casey, and Chiefs over. And waiting for a chance to make somebody look like options. But let's be honest about that.
And the Ravens and Texans, they meet. Stroud, who's been winless against Lamar his entire career, he finally gets a win against Lamar on Monday Night Football. So that sets up a Bengals matchup against the 17-0 Bills team in the divisional round. And then the Texans get the Chiefs again in Arrowhead. So those are the official matchups. And I think both of the AFC games would be on a Sunday in this scenario, and both the NFC divisional round games would be on a Saturday, because the Texans are playing the Ravens on Monday night. They are getting one of the Sunday games. And Bengals-Bills, even if the Bills go 17-0, that is going to be a Sunday game just from a ratings perspective. They're not going to put that game on a Saturday. That's going to be a Sunday game. So, both the NFC games are going to be the Saturday games in my scenario, but we'll get to the wild card in Joey's scenario first before we get to the divisional round in my scenario. All right. Let's go through this here. Let's go through the games here. I'm just trying to think from a scheduling perspective. Bengals-Chiefs is probably the Sunday night game on NBC. I'm guessing Seahawks-Rams. Well, actually, you got 2 division rivalry games. Commanders, Eagles, and Seahawks-Rams. You can make an argument for either of those being the Sunday night or the Saturday night game or the Monday night game. But I'm guessing in this scenario, Seahawks Rams is the least appealing of those 3, and you got Chargers Broncos too. So you got 3 division rivalry games plus Chiefs Bengals. This is a very advantageous position for the NFL to be in. So basically the 2 blandest games are Patriots Texans and Cardinals Lions. Which one of those games do you want to kick off on NBC to start the playoffs, Joey, at 4 p.m.? Because it's going to be, if your scenario is correct, one of those games is going to be the 4 p.m. game on NBC, and then they're going to save the division rivalries for a Sunday and Monday Night Football. And because you got 3 division rivalry games plus Chiefs Bengals. So we're saving those 4 games for we could save those 4 for Sunday, or we could save those 4 for because I think that whichever game you don't pick is probably the Sunday 1 p.m. game. And
I think the Cardinals and Lions.
all right, Cardinals-Lions, that will be the very first game in this scenario here. An NBC, Kyler Murray versus Jared Goff.
Yeah, we want some explosion and a chance at an upset to start this off. Because I remember they used to have that all the time. And the playoffs were so exciting on that first day. And it locked me in for the rest of the playoff season. Nothing boring to start out. Start out high octane.
Yep. So I'm guessing in this scenario we'd have the Cardinals or the Lions in Detroit. As admirable as the Cardinals story is, I'm not sure they could upset the Lions in Detroit.
Neither do I, but I think it would be. I think they'd put up a good fight.
I agree with that.
And the story would be potential upset. You know, Kyler Murray, doing his thing first playoffs. Had a great season. He would be able to put a package together, get people excited, have an exciting game. Predictable, exciting game, get people ready for the 8 o'clock matchup, 8:15 matchup.
Well, this would be a 4:30 game because there's a 4:30 game and there's an 8:30 game on a Saturday. This is the 4:30 game because look at what you have on your plate, Joey. You have Chiefs, Bengals, and Cincy. You have Chargers at Broncos. You have Commanders at Eagles, and you have Seahawks at Rams. With those 3 division rivalries plus Chiefs, Bengals, I can guarantee you 3 of those 4 games I just mentioned are going to be the night games. So that left the Patriots, Texans, and Lions, Cardinals as the de facto 4:30 games for Saturday. And you went with Lions, Cardinals to start it off. So the Lions, they're going to win, and they're going to be the team that moves on to the next round. So the question is, what will be the game that gets put on Amazon Prime? Because I think NBC and Monday Night Football and Fox, they have their pick of the litter. I'm guessing if Fox were to pick a 4:30 game, they would pick Lions. They would pick Commanders, Eagles because it's a rematch of last year's NFC Championship. And NBC would pick Chiefs, Bengals. So that leaves Chargers, Broncos, or Rams, Seahawks as the de facto Saturday night game on Amazon Prime. Because one of those would get pushed to Monday night and the other is the game Amazon Prime would get. And I'm guessing if ESPN had to pick, they would pick they'd pick Seahawks, Rams, which means Chargers, Broncos, which is probably the game you'd prefer to break down of those 2 is the Saturday night game, logistically.
Well, that's what I would choose because, once again, you want to go high octane. And you've got Harbaugh versus Peyton. You've got 10 to 15-yard packs and big run after plays versus the heavy running game, big play packs. Once again, big chance for big plays, high octane. Get the Saturday started off with a bang. That's what you want. What you want, go for it. And then everybody's going to be tuned in Sunday. Nobody's going to want much anything to happen Sunday because not only is the NFL playoffs and has great games, but you just saw 2 amazing games on Saturday. What else can the NFL?
But who do you like in this Chargers-Broncos game in Denver? Broncos won the regular season finale. You don't think the Chargers would be thinking about revenge if they got a redo of this game?
Well, every team's thinking about revenge on every game they lost. So they probably are, yes.
But you got the Broncos. This is what's interesting, though, because you got Sunday 1 p.m. Honestly, Commanders-Eagles might be the 1 p.m. game on a Sunday, and then they might put Patriots-Texans at 4:25 because, well, maybe no, not necessarily, because the Texans have played at 1 in years past. So they are due for a Sunday 1 p.m. game, even though historically speaking, a lot of Texans home playoff games have been in that Saturday 4:25 slot. The Texans are due for a 1 p.m. home game in the playoffs. They're due for one. But I think every Texans home game, William Joey, has been a 4:25 game on a Saturday, historically speaking. But they are due for a 1 p.m. game. So we'll stick with the current Patriot Texans. It's in Houston, 1 p.m. game. We don't know who's playing who yet.
Yeah, I would take the Texans in this. I think they could fill your way.
All right, so 4:25 on Fox, it's Commanders, Eagles, rematch of last year's NFC title in Philadelphia. Eagles won this game in Week 18 for the division. It's a rematch of Week 18.
I'm gonna go with the Packers in an upset.
Commanders? You mean Commanders in the upset?
Yes.
Okay. So the Commanders beat the Eagles. So Jane Daniels is going to get a rematch with Baker Mayfield since the Buccaneers are the 1 seed in your bracket. So that leaves Bengals and Chiefs. It's the 8-9 Chiefs versus the Bengals. If the 8-9 Chiefs win, they will be heading to Buffalo to take on the Bills in the divisional round. If the Bengals win, we get Bengals, Broncos, and then we also get Texans, Bills for the divisional round. So
This would be a really high score, but I don't think, even though the Chiefs are not as good as they've been in years past, the Bengals defense sucks. But last year sucks this year.
And I think the other element is if the Chiefs go 8-9, make the playoffs, they're going to be so angry they're just going to run it up on whoever they play. That's
also the Bengals can run it up on anybody they play.
That's true too.
I scored. I got the Bengals winning.
I thought you had the Chiefs winning initially.
Well, no, but the Bengals. Joe has a duty assistant. He's the only.
That's true, and I do have the I'll save my argument for the Bengals going to the Super Bowl, but the Monday night game is Seahawks, Rams, and whoever wins this game gets to go to Detroit in the divisional round. And the Rams are the home team for this Monday night football game.
I'm going with the Rams, and I think an airplane will fly overhead and drown out the call for the Seahawks quarterback, leading to an interception.
All right, we're going to go back to the divisional round here. And in this scenario, the 49ers, Buccaneers, this is the Saturday afternoon game. Because if Packers-Lions it's a great scenario either way. Bengals-Bills, you could argue that should be the Saturday night game in Buffalo. But no, because Packers-Lions, that could be either a 3:30 game on Sunday or it can be But I think in this scenario, actually, because Peacock gets a game, Fox gets a game, CBS gets a game, and ABC gets a game. But ABC is going to get Baker Mayfield versus the 49ers. Baker's going to win. We don't know who Baker's going to play in the AFC title yet. And in my scenario, we're going to make Bengals-Bills the Saturday night game because the division rivalry, I think Peacock would prefer to have the division rivalry over Bengals-Bills. And I'm guessing CBS, if they had their pick between these games, they would want Bills. They would want Bills, Bengals. So in this scenario, Peacock gets Chiefs, Texans, and Fox gets Lions, Packers. So
that makes sense because if you look at history, NBC's, always look for one thing. CBS always look for entertainment ratings. Fox is always, which game's not going to have the system knows.
So the Saturday night game is Bengals, Bills in Buffalo. The Bills 17-0. They get the Bengals, and it's the Bengals who end the Bills' season at 17-1. You got Rob Kraft and Larry Zonka doing champagne shots with each other, roasting the Bills for going 17-1, failing to win a playoff game after a perfect regular season. And then you got the Dolphins roasting the Patriots for going 18-1 after the Dolphins and Patriots joined forces to roast the Bills. So
here's the thing I don't think a lot of people realize is that if you go back and watch old play-by-plays from the early 90s, late 80s, Larry Zonk is one of the most underrated play-by-play announcers you may ever find.
I agree with that.
Easy. And I mean, he was kind of like Jimmy Donovan, except for competitive.
Well, Jimmy Donovan, I made this argument yesterday. I think the Dallas Stars announcer who won the Announcer of the Year award is better than Jimmy Donovan, and that's because he's done it longer. If you've won accolades for media awards, personality is great, but if you've won media awards and you've been broadcasting longer than Jimmy Donovan, that says more about you. And that's not a knock on Donovan. I just think I wanted to compare the resumes for fun yesterday, and I found out the guy who won the media announcer award for the Dallas Stars, Daryl Rowe, he's been broadcasting Stars games since 1996, Jimmy Donovan 1999. And he was Announcer of the Year twice, Daryl Rowe. That's the argument for why he's better than Jimmy Donovan. And it's a valid argument.
It is, but what did he do before that? Like before that, Jimmy Donovan was a CBS calling games for.
I believe he did some other stuff before that.
I know, but I'm curious. I'm curious, Chris.
Because I was comparing both. I was comparing both resumes yesterday. He was the NHL on NBC guy. So not only was he a former goalie for the Edmonton Oilers in 1984, he was the backup to Grant Furr. After that, after an injury cut his career short, he began working on the American Hockey League, and then he got promoted to color commentator for the Hartford Whalers. And he also worked with ABC, ESPN, Fox versus an NBC for playoff games. But he did all of that before he became the Dallas Stars commentator. He was basically a play-by-play guy for the Dallas Stars in 1996. But when the Stars weren't in the playoffs, he would do work for companies like ABC, ESPN, Fox versus an NBC. So, and he was also the color commentator for NHL 98 and NHL 99 before Gary Thorne and Bill Clement got on EA Sports. So there's that to his resume too.
And I think Jimmy was doing it in the 80s with, I think he actually got Hollingsworth started back in the day. But I know he was with one separate announcer. I think it might have been Dick Emerson. Back in the late 80s. Whoever was doing the Sunday night game back in the 80s for DES.
Yeah, and because their resumes are extremely comparable. Okay, but I would say if we were putting announcers in S tier, Daryl Rowe and Jim Donovan are both probably S tier for personality. If we're just going personality alone, they're not A tier, they're S tier. Because they both have amazing nicknames too. They both have amazing nicknames when color commentating. When a goalie makes a save, Daryl Rowe would refer to that as larceny. And when Nick Chubb had a big run, Donovan called Chubba Wubba Hub. So I mean, both those
I can remember that off the top of my head. It's like Jimmy was going freaking nuts.
Yeah, so
commentary, but at the same time, it was just so iconic. Like,
yeah,
and that's the fun part. It's like when things come out organically that really make absolutely no sense. Those are always the most memorable because it's like, yeah, got it in the moment. Like some of the stuff John Madden used to say, didn't understand it. Damn thing he was saying.
Yep. So both guys are amazing. Both Daryl Rowe and Jim Donovan are amazing. Both have amazing resumes, not just for color commentating for one team. It's just what they did. I think Donovan won 3 awards and 1 Emmy, and Daryl Rowe won 2 awards for hockey in 2012 and then this year. His was his first award since 2012. So
I wish Jimmy and Bob Uecker and Dale Rowe, I wish Jimmy and Bob Uecker would have lived long enough where you could get those 3 in a booth for some random sports game and just let them go.
I love Daryl Rowe and Jim Donovan, but there's one guy in college football that makes both of them look like amateurs. Keith Jackson. Keith Jackson, as much as I love Gus Johnson's voice, Keith Jackson is the greatest college football announcer of all time. If we had a Mount Rushmore of college football announcers, Keith Jackson's getting the first statue. That's not even there's not even an argument for anyone else. He's getting the first statue.
Absolutely not. Keith Jackson is absolutely an amazing commentator.
I would go as far as to say he was the Johnny Carson of college football.
That's how a statement, but I can't really argue that. We from the 70s till around 2000.
We got to get back to the playoffs. We got to get back to the playoffs. This rant was a lot of fun, but we got to get back to the Chiefs Texans. You've managed to segue away from the Chiefs Texans. I mean, I get it. You don't like the Chiefs. You were sick of this team having success, but to segue away from them, come on. I do have them beating the Texans on NBC, and then the Sunday night game on Fox is Lions, Packers, and Detroit, and I have the Lions winning that. So AFC title game is going to be Bengals, Chiefs, and Arrowhead. NFC title game is going to be Buccaneers, Lions, and Detroit. But we'll get to Joey's predictions for the divisional round too. But if you want to say something about the announcers quickly before we get into your games, feel free.
Well, I don't really have anything else to say about the announcers other than I would love to see that freaky week that I mentioned before. But man, your championship game, that would be kind of must-see TV. So I do commend you for accidentally setting up those games.
Yeah. So the Bengals, they end the Bills' perfect regular season, but the Chiefs, they have to go through the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl. And in your scenario here, I'm looking at the first game we did in your scenario was Cardinals-Lions, which means and they're not going to put if Seahawks-Rams is the Monday night game, that's probably a Sunday game. So I'm just trying to be a little bit realistic about this. Saturday night game was Saturday night game for you was the Broncos Chargers, and then I think you had the Texans on Sunday. So I'm just trying to be. I'm guessing Texans, Bills, and Buffalo would be the 4:25 game on a Saturday. I don't know. That might be a one. They don't do 1 p.m. games in the divisional round anymore. It's 3:30 and 6:30. I think for the divisional round on Sundays, and then it's 4:30 and 8:30 on Saturdays.
Texans and Bills would be one of the late games simply because of the quarterback matchup. What do you think?
I would think. I'm guessing Buccaneers Commanders would be the 4 p.m. game because Commanders they did play on a Sunday afternoon, but I'm guessing with the Rams playing on Monday night, Lions Rams would be a Sunday game, Sunday afternoon game. Or Sunday evening game. So really, logistically, if we're doing a Saturday afternoon game, our choices are Broncos and Bengals or Commanders Buccaneers. And
I'll go Broncos and Bengals in the early game.
Yeah, logistically, those are because that saves you the other two for the night games, and the mystery of who's going to host each conference championship is still up for debate, but the Broncos, they head to Cincinnati. What do you think is going to happen in this game?
Broncos think it's. Also, I think the Broncos are a year away. I think they need to make some noticeable improvement in a couple areas. I think they need to improve their wide receiver core. I think they need to improve their offensive line. So I do think they do have good players at those positions.
Yeah.
I think, but with an offense like the Bengals, you have to be far better. It's like, well, I don't care who goes up against the Bengals. If you can't score with them, you're not going to beat them. And so I think that the Bengals are going to win this because, you got T. Higgins, who's remotivated after his contract. You got Jamar Chase, who is, I actually expect him to take another step this year, which is absolutely scary for anybody who's actually paying attention to the NFL.
And I'm guessing we're going to put Rams-Lions in the Saturday night slot because as much as, well, actually, logistically, Rams-Lions would have to be in the Sunday night slot because the team that plays on Monday Night Football usually ends up playing in the divisional round on Sundays. Logistically, that's usually how it goes down, even though...
And because for me, I would put this late because...
Yeah, I'm guessing the Saturday night game is going to be... Commanders, Buccaneers, and then the Sunday afternoon, early afternoon is going to be Bills, Texans, and Lions, Rams would be the Sunday night game. But you could argue Rams, Lions is Sunday afternoon, and then Bills, Texans is Sunday night. You go.
It's a late game for the Rams and Lions, and I look at it this way: the networks are going to be looking at trying to find the changing of the guard. Who is the next big thing? Because Stafford. I have had high praise for him for years. He's 40 years old. Okay? He's going to be around much longer. I mean, he's had major shoulder issues.
Yeah, and they're probably going to put Commanders, Buccaneers on Fox since that game was on NBC. Even if that's a Saturday night game, that's probably the Fox game. And then Lions, Rams would be the NBC game. And then Bills, Texans would be the CBS game. That's...
They're going to want to change the guard. They're going to want if the old goes out, they're going to want that new team, that fresh, shiny new thing, to launch, to take out Stafford, because Stafford is, for my money, greatest pocket passer, pure pocket passer in NFL history.
What do you think's going to happen in the Lions Buccaneers game? We'll save the Rams Lions for the end.
I got the Buccaneers.
Okay, so the Buccaneers are the first team to punch their ticket to the NFC title, and then we go to the Sunday afternoon game. That's going to be Bills Texans, and it's in Buffalo.
This is going to be a good game.
Yeah.
I think the Bills did a nice job of improving their wide receiver core. Nothing special.
I agree.
Just a nice job.
Are you still here, William? Because I'm kind of curious what you have to think about our playoff brackets.
Yeah, I don't think I haven't heard from William in a while, so yeah, it's like. William,
I think William's phone died. I just hit 10%.
I thought you were saying you're still here. But I would. Okay, remind me what I was doing. We haven't.
Do they still have Detroit-style pizza at the Hut? I don't know if that's a Pizza Hut reference or if that's a I don't understand. I know.
What game were we talking about again? I was really looking forward to William's commentary, and then you derailed me here.
Yeah, I was looking forward to Williams' commentary, but I found out his phone's at 10%. But Texans and Bills, it's Texans, Bills, and Buffalo. That's the game we're talking about. Who do you think's going to play the Bengals?
I don't like what the Texans have done on offense this year.
And I've got to be fair to Bills fans, I've got the Bills winning Super Bowl 61, but I've got the Bengals winning Super Bowl 60. And I have the Bills going 17-0 this year, but I have the Bengals beating them in the playoffs. So that's really the de facto Super Bowl, in my opinion, that divisional round game. But in my scenario, the Chiefs end up getting the AFC South team, and the two best teams in the AFC, arguably teams in Joey's AFC championship, end up meeting in the divisional round. So that led to Bengals Chiefs in my scenario.
Don't ruin it for the people, Chris. Keep your Super Bowl until the Super Bowl.
I won't ruin it, but like I'm gonna Lions and Rams. Who do you like here? It sounds like you're tempted to take the Rams, but ultimately you're gonna take the Lions.
I am tempted to take the Rams because I think Stafford. I still think he's got some of the time. The dude can still swing. But I don't think the Rams are as good of a team. I don't think their receivers are good. I don't think their offensive line is good. I think Stafford will keep them afloat. I think Stafford will get them a playoff win. But, man, the changing of the guard is going to come sometime.
Yeah.
And I think networks are going to be wanting that game because they can say, when Stafford's shaking Goff's hand at the end of the game, they can say, there's a change in the guard right there. And they want that moment on camera.
Yep. All right, so Joey's AFC championship is Bengals Bills. My AFC championship is Bengals at Chiefs. And we both have Lions Buccaneers in the NFC title game. Okay. Conference championship. We'll go back to my screen. I've got the Bengals beating the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I think the Bengals, they go into Arrowhead, they beat the Chiefs, and Burrow gets to his second Super Bowl. Chiefs are going to be more suspect defensively. I think the Chiefs are going to be more dominant offensively with Josh Simmons at left tackle. I think they're going to go back to being the best offensive team they've had since 2018, 2019. But I also think they're going to be the worst defensive team since 2018, 2019 with the turnover. So I've got the Bengals beating the Chiefs in a shootout. And then I've got the Lions beating the 9-8 Buccaneers, who barely beat Carolina to win the division in Week 18, winning the NFC title game. And that sets up for a hell of a Super Bowl between the Lions and the Bengals in San Francisco. And the Bengals' first Super Bowl was against San Francisco in Detroit, the Pontiac Silverdome. So now you got the Lions playing the Bengals in San Francisco in the stadium where the Bengals, in the city where the Bengals lost their first Super Bowl against the team playing in their first Super Bowl. So that's going to be my Super Bowl, but we'll get to your AFC title game, and because the AFC title game is the early game this year, the NFC title game is the late game this year. I do have Bills Buccaneers in Super Bowl 61, but not Super Bowl 60. I think both teams are a year away.
I've got a replay of when the Bengals beat the Chiefs on that last second field goal happening in this game. It's going to be like 31-31 or 24-24. They get in there and a 45-yard field goal for the win. Bengals make it to the Super Bowl.
And then that leaves the Buccaneers and the Lions for your NFC title game.
Now this is one I've got a hell of a prediction for. Tie game. No. I'm gonna change that. Bucks down 3. Buccaneers driver. Baker Mayfield throws an interception with 3 minutes left. 3rd and long. Bucks defense holds them. Ball comes down and throws an interception.
I just don't think the Buccaneers pass rushers, they don't have that sack artist, and the Lions of Aiden Hutchinson, they just don't match up well with the Lions.
It doesn't matter if they have it. It just takes one play.
That's true. But the Buccaneers don't have a safety next to a Winfield, so if you just target the player away from Winfield, you can pick them apart.
I didn't say whether the pass was kicked. I didn't say anything like that. I just said it was an interception. I'm not giving the details.
All right, that's fair.
And then Baker comes down and gets to the 10-yard line. They're going to have one play. It kicks field goal. Tie game. I don't even want to say 27-27. Whatever it is. Lions with the field goal. In overtime, Baker throws to Evans. Evans leaps up and catches it in the end zone for Buccaneers going to the Super Bowl in overtime.
You're just doing this so we have a different Super Bowl. On paper, the Lions are a better team than the Buccaneers.
Chris, have you ever seen upsets before? It happens.
It happened in week 2 last year. I don't think it would happen in this game. I mean, Baker literally has to be perfect to beat the Lions.
I'm not excited in these playoffs, okay? I don't want another boring playoffs like we had last year.
Bengals Lions is a good playoff. It's not a boring playoff. Buccaneers don't have a good sack artist. That would be a boring Super Bowl. I'm sorry. Not this year. If they fix their pass rush in next year's draft, I think the Buccaneers could legitimately make the Super Bowl. I like Benjamin Morrison. I think Morrison, if he's starting, he could intercept Goff in the NFC Championship, but he's not starting right out of the gate.
I like overtime games, and I like turnovers at this time that put overtime games and make them happen.
I like games that are realistic versus games that are fun. This is where Joey and I differ. Fun.
Well, it's realistic. It's like, did you watch? Well, no, you didn't see that game because you weren't old enough.
I saw the Falcons-Vikings overtime game. That was the.
That was what I was thinking of. This one was in the early 90s. Yeah, so you didn't see that game, but it wasn't realistic. But it happened, which made it realistic. Backup players for the Cowboys ended up making the big plays that ended up getting them the Super Bowl. It happens. They made it realistic because a couple players stepped up.
I think the Buccaneers are going to take that next step, but Baker's never played in an NFC title game in his entire career. And I think the experience matters to a degree. The experience matters.
It does to a degree, but, even the Bills' backup quarterback let him go Super Bowl. You catch lightning in a bottle, Nick Foles.
I think that lightning in the bottle is coming next season. That's why I picked Detroit, but
Fair. It's like when the lightning hits, we don't know, but we can make educated guesses.
I do think the Buccaneers get to a Super Bowl, but it's next year in LA when they play the Bills. And it's gonna, because that's the thing. The Bills got the Josh Allen pick in a trade with the Buccaneers. So I think that's why we're gonna see Bills Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. It's gonna be Baker and Allen. And Mahomes and Baker get denied that dream Super Bowl you want this year with both. But yeah, the Lions, they get to the Super Bowl and they lose the Bengals. The Bengals, Burrow is a Lombardi winner. And I think the Buccaneers could make Super Bowl if Buka's as good as I think he's going to be. I think the Buccaneers could make 2 Super Bowls, 61 and 62. But I'm kind of torn. I think the Chargers win 62, but I'm kind of torn on who their opponent's going to be. Because initially I'm thinking the Buccaneers, because if the Super Bowl's in Atlanta, Baker, but it might be somebody like a Jaden Daniels. It could be a quarterback from Georgia too, but I don't think there's an NFC QB from Georgia. So that's the problem there. Could be. So I'm just trying to think realistically who would be the opponent. I think the only NFC team Jim Harbaugh played on was the Bears. I believe he played for the Chargers, the Bears, and the Ravens. That was his career, right? As a player. Not a coach, as a player.
He played for the Lions. He was Lions quarterback for a while. I think it was only 1 year or something like that. Would that have been in the division at that time? I know it was early 90s.
I just want to see. He started his career with the Bears, then he went to the Colts, and when they beat the Steelers in the playoffs, then he went to the Ravens, then he went to the Chargers, and then he went to the Lions and Panthers. But he was on the practice squad for the Lions. He didn't play. He's a practice squad, so I'm not going to count that.
Okay. Yeah.
And he was on the 0-1 Panthers after Chris Winkie just crapped the bed that year. So
That's being kind.
But yeah, so Chargers Bears, that will be because I honestly, if the Chargers have to beat the Ravens to get to Super Bowl 62 in that AFC Championship, and they got to go into Baltimore, I would think the opponent, I would think Harbaugh's opponent would be the team he began his career with. But I could see the Commanders, I could see the Buccaneers for Super Bowl 62. I could see the Bears in Super Bowl 62 if Caleb pulls it together in year 3 and year 4. And I honestly could see Caleb. If Caleb pulls it to get Caleb makes the leap in year 3, I could see him.
His OTAs are showing that he's making progress. I wouldn't say he's making a leap.
I don't think he's going to make a leap this year due to strength of schedule, but I think year 3 and year 4 will be the years where Caleb makes that jump. Because remember, Stafford didn't make a jump in his development till year 3, but that's partially because he got injured in week 1 of his sophomore season.
Well, that's part. Well, he ripped up his shoulder against the Browns.
I think it was the Bears, actually, not the Browns. It was the Bears.
I was watching the game, and I remember I was absolutely...
No, because it was week 1 of the 2009-2010 season, and he played the Bears that week. I remember. It was a 1 p.m. game.
No, this was the last game of the season. I think this might have been his rookie year.
That was his. What you're thinking of was his rookie year. I'm telling you, year 2, Matthew Stafford suffered a seasoning injury in week 1, and I believe the Lions' opponent that year was the Chicago Bears.
Okay, so he had a lot of injuries
Because
early.
remember, he played through the injury against the Browns when he led the Lions to that huge comeback win over the Browns. And you've told the story, I think, 100 times in the show by now, but regardless, it's a good story. It's a good story. I'm not arguing that, but I think the game where Stafford got injured as a sophomore was against the Bears. And then they got Ndamukong Suh, and then I think they actually got Nick Fairley, and then they made the playoffs in 2011, 2012. So, but yeah.
It's fun to, honestly, when it comes to legendary quarterbacks, it's kind of fun to just look back at them and see where they started, how they started. I mean,
because I could see Baker making 2 Super Bowls with the Buccaneers. I really could, but I just don't think he wins either. I think he loses to both Allen and Herbert. I don't think he wins either game, but I think I could see him getting to multiple Super Bowls.
Well, if he does win a Super Bowl, he better thank McVay. He better thank Coach McVay because everybody's ready to give up on him. And Todd McVay,
that's kind of what I'm thinking. If Stafford does not retire after this season, I'm kind of thinking the Rams would be the Buccaneers' opponent in the NFC title game. And it would be a Baker arc minus the Browns. It would be a Baker play. So if the Bucs are the 1 seed, they get the Panthers in the divisional round with Bryce Young, and then they get the Rams in the NFC title game with McVay. And then they play the Bills and lose the Bills in the Super Bowl. That's what I'm thinking for Super Bowl 61 is Baker.
Media. If the Browns ever played in the Super Bowl against Baker Mayfield, because I would be sick to my stomach thinking about the stupid shit that was going to get said for that Super Bowl. I would have to cut everything off until the game actually started. I couldn't deal with stupid shit that would come out of that.
But yeah, I do think the Bengals win, and we're at the point where I think we're going to see more parity. I said there was going to be a reward for the Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl last year. There was going to be a payoff. And the payoff is we get Lions-Bengals this year, we get Bills-Buccaneers next year, and then we get Chargers versus either Bears-Buccaneers or Commanders the year after that. And that's a hell of a payoff for having to go through the Super Bowl we just went through. If that's the payoff, I think you can live with last year's Super Bowl. If we get Bengals, Bills, and then we get Chargers versus someone in the NFC, whether it's Baker again or Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, that's a good payoff. Okay? That's a good... But I think if the Panthers go 8-9 and they come 1 game shy of winning the division, I think that would be enough for Bryce Young to get a 5th-year tender. Not an extension, but a 5th-year tender. in my scenario. But yeah, we'll crown your Super Bowl champion right now. Is it going to be the Bengals or is it going to be the Buccaneers? That's what we're here to find out.
Now, this is interesting because I don't think the Bengals defense can stop anybody.
But I don't think the Buccaneers have a sack artist on their defense. The Bengals at least have Trey Hendrickson. And
so this is a really difficult thing. So
I think the Hendrickson situation is going to get resolved. It seems like you're leaning toward it not getting resolved. But
because of the contract to Burrow and the receivers, I mean, the all that would be you would have 3 guys make like 7% of your payroll, and that's just untenable.
4 guys making 70% of the payroll, but I think the Bengals can make it work. I mean, that's pretty much what the Oilers are going to have to do. And because look at the Oilers, if Connor McDavid wins the Stanley Cup this year, they're probably going to pay him $20 million. They're paying Draisaitl like $12 million. The second line center, they're already paying, and Evan Bouchard wants $9 million. The problem is the Oilers only have $9.45 in cap space, so they're probably going to have to pay him $7.5 million for 2 years on a team-friendly deal or a 1-year deal, and then give him $9 million in 25 or 26 after they pay McDavid, and that's going to end up screwing the Oilers. But that's basically what the Bengals will become if they pay Hendrickson. They'll basically become the NFL's version of the Edmonton Oilers with all the money tied into those 4 guys.
Drafted Hendrickson's replacement, and now won't pay him. So it's like, what are you guys doing? Defensively, I don't think they know what they're doing.
I like Miles Murphy. I'm very high on Miles Murphy, their 2023 first-round pick, and they've got Joseph Osai and they've got Shamar Stewart. So I love the Bengals' depth at edge rusher this year, not just the starters, but the depth as well. The Buccaneers, they've got a guy from Louisville they drafted in the 3rd round, Yaya Diaby. You got him. Anthony Nelson took the starting left outside linebacker job from Joe Tryon. I feel like they needed to get an edge rusher early in the draft, and they didn't. So that is going to limit their ability to get to the quarterback.
I do think the Bengals win this game.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be an offensive game because I don't think the defense is really that good.
And the crazy thing is, we both agree on the Super Bowl winner. That's a first. We almost agreed on the matchup, too, which is nuts.
Yeah, it is. But the thing is, the Buccaneers and the Bengals defenses are terrible. Unfortunately, for the Buccaneers, the Bengals have one of those offenses that are just, you outscore us or you don't beat us. And unless Evans and Mayfield have a game of their lives and Godwin comes up with some ungodly catch, I don't think that the Buccaneers have the weapons without having the defense to stop the Bengals.
Yeah.
Stop the Bengals on that one. I think that if the Bucs play a team with a lesser offense, I think they would win. Yes.
If they played the Broncos, that's probably the only team in your bracket I could see the Buccaneers beating in the Super Bowl. If they played the Texans, that could go either way, but I would probably pick the Texans just based off of QB and the edge rushers the Texans have with Hunter and Will Anderson. They can get a lot of pressure on the QB. So
it would just be a thing of, being outscored, and the Buccaneers cannot score a lot of things. I don't see them outscoring the Bengals.
Yeah.
The Bengals are just one of those teams with the high octane offense that their defense can suck all year long. They're still going to win.
I agree.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. So this is a crazy year for sports because Joey and I, we agreed on the Stanley Cup winner. We both have Edmonton over Florida. for this series, but we both had Edmonton at the start of the playoffs. I had Edmonton over Toronto, but Toronto, they're losing Marner to free agency. They're not going to be able to replace him in free agency or the draft, but there's talks they're not going to bring him back. So that's pretty much going to kill Toronto's cup window because you draft all that talent, Nylander, Marner, and Matthews. You ended up drafting those guys seventh. I think you drafted those guys sixth, fourth, and first overall in 2014 and 2015 and 2016. So you only kept two of those guys. John Tavares was your team captain for many years until this year. And then it was Matthews, and then he's leaving too. So two of your core four in Toronto are going to be gone, and I don't think you can replace those guys. You're too good, too competitive to be picking at the top of the draft to get viable replacements for those players. So essentially, Toronto's cup window is over, and Florida's got $20 million. So if they can keep Ekblad, they can keep Sam Bennett, and they can keep Bobrovsky with that, and the Bobrovsky contract would not take effect until 2026, the following season, not this season. So as long as Florida can keep those contracts intact, I would think they're the team to beat again in the East next year. Only team that I think matches up well with the Panthers next year is the New Jersey Devils, and that's if everyone's healthy. I mean, the Devils, they had a laundry list of injuries this year. Jack Hughes got injured, Luke Hughes got injured, and I believe Dougie Hamilton, the Devils' most experienced defenseman, also got injured. So all three of those guys had season-ending injuries, and they just weren't going to beat Carolina with all of those injuries in effect. They just weren't. I mean, I'm sorry. It wasn't going to happen for the Devils. So, like, that's kind of where we're at. Hockey, really the only teams that have continuity or, like, complete rosters on paper heading into free agency next year are the Panthers, the Oilers, the Stars, and the Devils. That's it. Everybody else, it feels like, is he has the stars, lacks the depth players, or has the depth players, has the lineup, but lacks that star to put them over the top, like a team like the St. Louis Blues. That's really where hockey's at right now. And Zach Hyman did get injured, though. Zach Hyman, Edmonton's best right winger, he had a season-ending wrist surgery. So does that change things as far as your cup prediction for Edmonton over Florida? Because Edmonton's best right winger, season-ending wrist surgery, against Florida now. So
Not really.
I think the way the Oilers have played these playoffs has been so dominant. The look McDavid gave Draisaitl after the Oilers blew a 3-1 lead to Dallas. Jay just whooped our ass. Not only were they the better team, they whooped our ass, and I take zero pleasure in saying that as a Stars fan, but they didn't just win, they whooped our ass. So give them credit. I give them credit for whooping our ass, but I'm not happy about the outcome. But I think this is one of the rare occasions where not only did we agree on Edmonton winning the cup, we were both sort of resenting the idea of them winning it because you wanted Florida to win it again. I kind of wanted Dallas, but we both kind of agreed on paper they're the best team. And Edmonton, the only players they lose to free agency are the fourth line right winger and left winger, but they could bring up Seth Griffith, 72 points in the AHL, and Matthew Savoy, 51 points in the AHL next year, and basically run it back with the exact same lineup as this year. So Oilers look very steady, not just for this year, but I would argue they're the early favorite for 2026. But I mean, I was going to go with an NBA Finals thumbnail if the Pacers won, but they didn't. And as good as this Knicks-Pacers series is, I do not think either team has a snowball's chance against Oklahoma City in the finals. I think both teams would get clobbered by Oklahoma City in 5 games. This is going to be uglier than Celtics-Mavs last year. That's honestly how I feel about the NBA Finals this year. This is going to be uglier than the Celtics-Mavs finals we got last year.
I don't know. The Pacers are a tough team. They beat the Cavs not because they were a better team on paper, because the Cavs were the best team on paper in basketball. They beat the Cavs because they were a tough team. They will beat you up. And I love that about the Pacers. And they're beating up the Knicks right now. So they're beating people up. And you gotta love that.
I mean, the Thunder with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they took care of the Timberwolves and the Grizzlies very easily. The Denver Nuggets were the only team to push them to 7 games, and I just think the Thunder with Shai, with Chet Holmgren, they're just too good right now. I mean, I think the Pacers would have a better chance of beating the Thunder than the Knicks, and that's largely due to the fact that I have more confidence in Rick Carlisle than I do in Tom Thibodeau. That's largely due to the fact that I have more confidence in Carlisle to win a 7-game series against the Thunder than I do in Thibodeau.
The one common denominator in the Pacers' success in their franchise's history is that every time they've only been to the NBA Finals once. This would be the second time.
So have the Thunder. The Thunder have not been to the NBA Finals since 2012. So both the Thunder and Pacers would be making their second appearance in the NBA Finals.
So both times for the Pacers, Larry Bird was involved. Senior advisor this year.
I don't think that's going to matter because Sam Presti's the best GM in basketball right now. Stockpiling draft picks like it's nobody's business.
Well, draft picks don't matter in the NBA Finals.
That's true, but I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren are the 2 best players left at the playoffs on any of the teams left, even over Halliburton and Brunson, and I have great respect for both those players, but I think Shai is just better. He's on a higher level.
If the Pacers lose game 1 of the NBA Finals and Larry Bird walks in the locker room, are you going to be more motivated as a Pacers player with Larry Bird walking in the locker room? Or are you going to be more motivated as a Charlotte player, or New Orleans player as...
I don't think it's going to matter, honestly. I really don't.
Yeah, it might not. But the point is still stands when it comes to...
I'll say this. I think the Pacers will make it closer. They will lose in 5 games like the Mavericks did. It will be an ugly series, but I think they will be more competitive than the Mavericks were in in maybe 3 of those games. They lose, but they lose by a closer margin. I'll pull up last year's NBA Finals to get the exact scores because so 106-88 was the score of game 1. No, game 1 was 107-89, 105-98, 106-99. So I definitely could see the Pacers losing by like 5 or 4 versus 7 because there were 2 7-point losses and then there was the blowouts in games 1 and 5. I think the Pacers probably lose game 2 by like 4. They lose game 3 at home by like 3. They win game 4 to avoid elimination, and then they lose game 5 by like 8 or 9. I still think it's an ugly series, but I don't think we get like an 106-88 or a 107-89 massacre that we got in game 1 or 5 of the NBA Finals. I don't think we get a massacre game. Pacers.
I think it's going to be a low scoring series. I think the Pacers are going to out-physical.
I don't think the...
And that is a big thing, and this is something I've heard a lot, is that they are not the most physical team, and we see when the Pacers play a team that's not physical, they beat them up. And that is their MO right now. So I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a closer series than you think.
And that's the thing. Last year, Mark Daigneault was the NBA head coach of the year, and he was an assistant at Holy Cross, and he was an assistant at Florida under Billy Donovan. So I think Daigneault is going to actually do a great job coaching this series, and I don't think Larry Bird's toughness and his speeches are going to matter. I don't.
But I know one thing. I trust Rick Carlisle better than I do almost any coach in the NBA.
And I love Rick Carlisle. The problem is I just think the Thunder are a better team on paper. And I think that
we're not arguing over that. We're basically, we disagree over the toughness and how much of a difference that makes.
I don't think the toughness is going to matter because the Thunder dominated the Western Conference. They've dominated this conference for 2 years in a row now. So I just think that's going to that experience is going to favor the Thunder, and I think with home court that's also going to favor them. You know, home court, they're going to have home court in 4 out of 7 games, so they're going to win the series. Maybe I do think the Pacers have a better chance of sending it to Game 6 than the Knicks do, but that's the most love I can give the Pacers. And I do think it'll be more competitive than last. I do think the Pacers, they will lose by even though I have them losing in 5, I do think they lose by a lower margin than the Mavs did. That's the most love and respect I can give the Pacers this year. And I will.
It's a fair assessment. I just think something's going to happen that's more in depth. Is going to make, along with the toughness, it's going to make the series closer than you think it is. Maybe it's just some shot that nobody's expecting that comes out of nowhere, and where the New Orleans is about ready to take control of the series 3-1 or whatever, and somebody from the Pacers comes down and hits that game-winning 3 that hits it 2-2.
Only way the Pacers can win this series is if they get about as many free throw calls as Dwayne Wade got in the 2006 finals. That's really the only scenario where I could see the Pacers winning the series. If Tyrese Halliburton gets as many free throw attempts as Dwayne Wade did in 2006, that's the one scenario where I could see the Pacers prevailing.
That's a really good point, Chris, because I don't think that's something that I can't believe in my mind.
Because I was watching a YouTube series video this morning, and this woman goes, "Was the 2006 finals rigged?" And she pointed out the lopsided free throw attempts the Heat got in that series versus the Mavericks. If it's that lopsided, I do think the Pacers can win, but that might be the only scenario where I can see the Pacers beating the Thunder.
I think it's the free throw percentage. If the Pacers shoot 89-90%, New Orleans shoots.
You keep saying New Orleans, but it's Oklahoma City, the Thunder.
Oklahoma City is two main teams, two main city. But if they shoot 82%, and they're both getting, say, let's make it even, say, 19 attempts a game, that's 17 points. You said 5-6 points. That's 17 points different. That is at least one win in every game they shoot 19 free throws for Indiana. Free throw percentage may matter more.
Yeah, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander made 89.8% of his free throws this year, which was 6th in the NBA.
Yeah, great free throw shooters. I'm just saying, as a team.
Yeah.
The teams, if there's 7-point differential in free throw shooting.
We will debate this a little bit more next week because I'm going to have the NBA next week. Just don't have it yet because the original plan, our plan A was to have the thumbnail for the NBA Finals, but the NBA Finals Eastern Conference champion was not crowned in the NBA. The East and West champions were crowned in the NHL, so that means we had to Stanley Cup thumbnail. Now, if Dallas had won Game 5, we would have had to go to our plan C, which was to name the top 10 sports teams of the 2020 decade, which I did with William right before we got in the NFL schedule. And I'll recap that for our audience. Right now, we have the Eagles and Boston Celtics tied for number 10. We've got the Edmonton Oilers at 9, but they can move up if they win the Stanley Cup. Dallas, they made 3 conference finals in a row, and they lost the 2020 Stanley Cup, so they're at 8. The Florida Panthers are at 7. If they win the Stanley Cup, they move up to 3 ahead of the Aces. If they lose to Edmonton, they would be ahead. They'd stay at 7. Columbus Crew are at 6. They won 2 MLS Cups this decade in 2020 and 2023, but have not made 3 consecutive conference finals. The Astros and Dodgers. Astros come in at 4. Dodgers come in at 5. Astros 7 years of ALCSs is just otherworldly. Dodgers did win 2 World Series this decade, but did not make the NLCS 3 years in a row. The Aces come in at 3. They won back-to-back WNBA titles and lost in the Final Four to the Liberty last year. Tampa Bay Lightning come in at 2. They won back-to-back Stanley Cups, nearly three-peated, lost the Cup final to Colorado in 22. And number 1 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They have made the AFC Championship every year this decade. They have made the Super Bowl 5 times this decade. They played in 3 consecutive Super Bowls the last 3 years. The Chiefs are number 1 this decade and William acknowledged that as much as he hates the Chiefs. He acknowledged they're the team of the 2020s decade so far, and it's by a pretty significant margin. Now, Florida wins this year and next year, then they could have an argument over the Chiefs if they three-peat, but I think a team would have to three-peat in order to supplant the Chiefs as the team of the decade. And I don't know if there's a team that can three-peat with the current structure and the way things are set up right now. Maybe the Oilers or Panthers, if one of those teams can three-peat, they can jump the Chiefs, but I'm not very confident in that at this time. Because a lot of the Oilers' core players, I know Evander Kane's a 2026 UFA, so is McDavid, but he's going to get paid this summer, and that's going to trickle down and cost the Oilers cap space in 2026, and then you're going to have to pay Bouchard to stay under the cap. So there's a bunch of different variables, but I think the Chiefs are probably the team of the decade right now. That could change if somebody three-peats in any of the sports, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I think if a team were to three-peat, it would probably be the Oilers or Panthers in hockey. I really can't see anyone else this decade three-peating. Baseball's too competitive right now for a three-peat. So is the NBA. And shit, I would even argue the MLS is competitive. And we played the Gavin McKenna interview this morning because Anthony, who came on our show 2 weeks ago, actually interviewed McKenna at the Memorial Cup. And McKenna was praising the 20-year-olds who are in their final year of junior hockey, talking about them and the team. And I love that. That just shows commitment to winning. It shows unselfishness. It shows leadership. And it shows even though I may lead the team in points, that doesn't matter. The guys who busted their tail these past 4 to 5 years, we got to win it for them. I love that. I wish Caleb Williams had showed more of that in the interview process in his draft year. But yeah, the fact that McKenna's already saying that in his +1 draft year, that's very good. That shows incredible levels of maturity. Because we knew he had the talent. It's just what was the maturity level? And that's the maturity level? Okay. I think... And there's one more game of the Memorial Cup tomorrow. It's London, last year's runner-up. They take on Medicine Hat, who won all the games in the qualifier. And I basically said Medicine Hat's going to win. Not just because of McKenna. Their goalie was WHL MVP. They have 2 good lines of defense, 2 good lines of forwards. Just a very complete team on paper. And I don't know. But yeah, I love the fact that McKenna was praising his teammates, and William was very impressed with the interview too. So that took place. And then we played the Trump interview where he praised Mason Rudolph. And I pretty much said that was a kiss of death for the Steelers and maybe even Mason Rudolph. Because you got Trump praising. Did you see the clip on X with Trump praising Mason Rudolph? Saying he's the guy. He's going to be the guy in Pittsburgh for a long time. It just feels like the president's giving Mason Rudolph the kiss of death.
Rudolph hasn't been with Pittsburgh in about 6 months.
Yeah, and he couldn't beat out Will Levis for the Titans starting job, even though he got multiple opportunities to take that job from him. Levis ended up finishing the season as the starter. So
Trump doesn't even know who Rudolph played for.
he just I gotta let's see here.
Donald Trump and I have agreed on one thing in 30 years. What are NFL teams thinking letting Shedeur Sanders slide this far? And then
Here's basically what the president said. I think he's going to get a big shot. He's tall, he's handsome, he's got a great arm. I have a feeling he's going to be the guy. That's basically what Trump said on Rudolph at the Pittsburgh rally yesterday.
Look, I'm all for saying a guy's handsome, okay? You know, there's nothing going to kill your masculinity saying that. But when you get into details like, oh, he's tall, he's got great hair, he's got a nice eyes.
He didn't mention anything about the hair. He said he's got a great arm. He didn't say anything about the hair.
Trump's mentioning his biceps. We need to put that away. You know, you can say a dude's handsome. Nobody's going to be upset about that. Well, I'm sure there's somebody going to be upset about it because in America, everybody gets pissed off about everything. But I have no problem with that. I will go up to a guy and say, "You're really handsome." Doesn't mean anything to me. Just a compliment. So I'm not going to go into freaking detail about it. Calm your ass down, Trump. I know you gained about 40 pounds. You're actually a little big. But you still got to calm it down. I know it's a little difficult.
He called Miles Killebrew a killer, and he's the backup to Minka Fitzpatrick. And I like Killebrew. He's a good player, but he's the fourth best safety on that team. They brought back Deshaun Elliott. Juan Thornhill's the backup to Elliott. So I would argue is even as good as Miles Killebrew is, he's the fourth best safety on that team.
Now I will say this. I will say, if you mentioned about somebody's beard, that is good. I mean, I'm not going to hold anybody accountable for getting upset about the beard or complimenting the beard. Okay, you say they're handsome, you say they have a great beard.
They did not mention the beard.
That's where I draw the line.
Donald Trump did not mention beard at all in the.
Well, that's Trump's problem because the beard is one of those things. I will say. I will not get upset with you. Like you say, he's handsome and he's got a great beard. I'll be like, cool beans. Because if you get a nice beard, it should be said. It needs to be recognized.
I think Mason Rudolph did have a beard. It was like Abe Lincoln's beard, and Trump did not say anything about the beard.
Well, that's what would have made it okay. He should have let go with the arm thing. Nobody cares what you think about this guy's arm. But he's got a nice beard. Cool. That's not. I'm not going to be upset about that. You're complimenting a guy and you're complimenting his beard. You're not saying, "Oh, I'm looking at them arms. Oh, yes, man, those look nice." It's like, calm your ass down, dude. Calm up, no big biceps. You know, you like that vein sticking out. You know, it's up to you. Go watch some porn, dude. No veins. Go watch some professional wrestling. And go watch some Scott Steiner clips. Got a lot of veins over. But if you mention the beard, we got you. You're good. Don't worry about it. We got the beard. Beard is good. I mean, hell, we had a segment, I think it was 2 years ago, who had the best beard in professional sports. We had some really nice freaking beards going on here on this podcast. So we were complimenting them beards everywhere. You know? So let's face it. You know, if you're handsome and you get a beard, do not get offended if a guy tells you you look good. Now, if he mentions your arms, or if he mentions your legs, get a little freaked out. Be complimented, but look at that dude's fat eye. You always want to take a compliment for what it is, but you always want to look outside and it's like, what the hell are your intentions, Steve? I appreciate the compliment, but what are your intentions? Just look from afar. Look from afar. And then if it's me, I just do a little pose that I walk away because, like, look but don't touch, bitch. But that's just me.
Yep.
Like, I do a freaking runway walk away. That's just me. I make you happy.
Okay, I've got a grid. I got one. You know these immaculate gridiron trivia squares. I pull. Yeah, you know those gridiron trivia squares. I just pulled up one of. So the categories are the team categories are Chiefs sacks in one game since 1999, Ohio State, and then the other teams in the grid are Buccaneers, Dolphins, and played with Aaron Rodgers. And so that's interesting. I'm guessing Garrett Wilson's the Ohio State played with Aaron Rodgers. I don't remember any Buckeyes playing with Aaron Rodgers on the Packers. Yep, Garrett Wilson is correct. I got one right on the trivia square. So now I'm looking for a player that played on the Chiefs and the Buccaneers. Did Clyde Edwards-Helaire play? No, let's go with something less. Trying to think of a player that played with the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. This is a little bit hard. I might come back to that one. Played with Aaron Rodgers and played for the Chiefs. All right, let's think here. Plus one sack and interception in one game since 1999. So to get a sack and an interception, that's going to be the hard category. And let's put Emeka Egbuka in the Buccaneers Ohio State category. No, that's not eligible. So can't pick him. So, all right. That's going to be a little bit harder. Chiefs and Buccaneers. I don't know any former Chiefs that went to the Buccaneers. Oh, man. Yeah. I'm not screen sharing the tab. I'm just curious. You can't even get the answers if you give up on the trivia thing, but whatever. I think we've ran out of topics for today. I know next week we'll have the next week I don't know what we'll do for next week yet. We'll have the NBA Finals preview. I don't know what other topics we'll have. Maybe you and William can pick out some football topics. I don't know. I've been very busy working on my NHL mock draft. I've got 118 write-ups. I'm on write-up 118, the Avalanche. They're the final team I have not done an off-season preview on. So once that's done, I can just have fun with the mock. I don't have to do any more off-season previews. I can just watch the teams, watch the film, and just get the mock done. And then I'll probably set up the QMJHL draft for next week once I get the fourth round finalized. And then I'll try to knock out rounds 5 through 7 once I have the QMJHL draft set up. Because I know we're doing a rookie draft Tuesday night, William and I, on Under the Bleachers. And then QMJHL draft will be Friday night. So we'll have a stream on Tuesday and Friday, and then a stream next Saturday, which will be an NBA, which will feature the NBA Finals. So that'll be it for this week. And only next week's show will only be available on Restream. Because we only have 8 episodes left on TalkShoe before we wrap up season 14 of Draft Utopia. This was episode 962.
I want to share one of the most brutal takes I have ever heard from somebody in a high-profile position on mainstream media. I think I shared it with you. Zach Jackson on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. He was talking about the Browns quarterback situation. He said Shedeur have been playing incredibly well. Joe Flacco was amazing. And then he talked about the other two guys. And he said, after talking about Sanders, he said, and the other guy does not look like an NFL quarterback. I'm like, damn. Damn, he actually just said that. He didn't even mention him by name, but we knew he was talking about. Everybody knew he was talking about Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
He said, the other guy. He wouldn't even mention his name. Okay, I respect Zach Jackson as much as I do anybody in the media. Okay, he's been doing this for 25 years. Yeah, he looks...
The main character in Euro Trip gets roasted by Matt Damon when he finds out his girlfriend's been hooking up with Matt Damon, and Matt Damon basically sings Scotty Doesn't Know. That's basically how I would summarize Dylan Gabriel's start with the Browns so far. And when I say Dylan doesn't know, I'm referring to the fact that he doesn't know he's going to get cut from the team. That's the whole joke there behind that song. And you're saying yeah in agreement. You're not saying yeah like it's funny because you know it's the brutally honest truth.
When Zach Jackson, somebody who is known to be, he and Jason Lloyd both say the reason they're employed is because they're soulless. It's because they are straight shooters, right or wrong. They will tell you exactly the way it is, and they don't care. And to see Zach, who has been around for that long, covering that many quarterbacks, and has been as accurate as he has been over his career, not even say the guy's name, won't even say his name, and then say he's not an NFL quarterback, but insinuates and puts it right behind Shedeur Sanders, and then says the other guy, you know exactly who he's talking about. That is freaking brutal. Brutal. And then they asked him about Kenny Pickett. He was like, oh yeah, and then there's Kenny Pickett. He's been unimpressive for years. So, he didn't even, at least he put effort into Gabriel to basically say, this guy deserves to be playing in Canada. And then with Kenny Pickett, he's just completely dismisses Kenny Pickett. It's like, Pickett's over here. And from what I understand, they're doing split 7-on-7s where Kevin Stefanski is running one 7-on-7 over here on this side of the field, and Reese is running, the offensive coordinator is running the 7-on-7 on the other side of the field. So it is a really interesting dynamic. And I've heard the Shedeur Sanders is run with the 2s. The 4s.
I wish you would have gone into... See, Browns Nation went into detail with what Zach Jackson said a little bit better than you did. Dylan Gabriel does not look like an NFL quarterback to me. 0%, so I don't know what's going to happen. That's basically what he said.
Yeah, you basically said no, he doesn't look like an NFL quarterback. And Kenny Pickett doesn't really look like much more than a decent backup. Yet Shedeur Sanders and Joe Flacco have been balls out. So the quote itself was what really got me. It's like,
I'm not...
Even so bad, you can't even get somebody to say your name? Oh, that's just harsh. It's like, I'm looking at a Sean William Scott quote or something like that. It's like, dude, it's gnarly. It's like, it's giving a look. It's like, oh, this is disgusting. How the hell do you say it like that? Just the way he said it was just brutal. If Dylan Gabriel heard that, can you see what his self-confidence would be like? Like, they can't even say my freaking name. They can't even disrespect me. To me.
I'm not putting any stock into the QB battle until the preseason because the reports are not congruent right now.
No, but when you hear a quote like that, though, it's like, oh my God.
I know, but I just don't. Until we see what happens in the preseason, everything. I don't put any stock into what Mary Kay says either. I think it's BS. But at the same time, until the reports are congruent, until everything's congruent with the media, or
That's not going to happen ever.
well, it's going to happen by July. Everything's going to be congruent with the Browns quarterback situation by the preseason, okay? It's going to be congruent. This thing's going to play itself out.
I don't think it'll be. I think it'll be week 3 of the preseason. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's going to happen. The situation, it's going to play itself out. That's why I'm putting zero stock into anything I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Because there's so much incongruency. It feels like somebody's shoving firework pixie sticks, those glow-in-the-dark pixie sticks, the glow-in-the-dark pixie sticks. It feels like somebody's trying to blind me with them, with how much incongruency is being reported on this competition. I know it's very fascinating to you. I still think it's...
The facility, it's on YouTube.
It's not. I watched the Patriots draft special. That was more fascinating. I'm just not.
No, this is a YouTube series. I mean, it's an entire series. It's Shady McCoy, Acho, Chase Daniels, and James Jones. And they just talk all things football. They're amazing. I would say check it out because they are really good.
I'm just swamped looking at NHL draft content. I really can't check anything out. And this is basically going to be the last football show of the year on Talk Shoe. It's going to be the last football show on Talk Shoe. There's just, if William wants to come up with football topics, fine. But I'm not doing any more football topics until August. This was literally the last day you'll hear me talk about football on this show.
I will bring up Joe Flacco several times simply because he's the same age I am, and
Well, it's just we've been spending 90%. We've been spending I don't know. We've been spending, I would say, 20% of the podcast since the draft ended talking about the Browns QB situation, and I feel like we've only spent 2% talking about the NBA draft, and that's because I really haven't gotten the NBA mock yet. I'm 4 rounds into the NHL mock, and I'm at the point where I think this NHL draft has just as much star power as the 2025 NFL draft. In the 2025 NFL draft, it didn't even get any votes for best draft class. NBA got multiple votes. NHL got 2 votes, and I think MLS got 1 vote, and that was from me. NFL got no votes, and I think that's because the QBs in this year's draft. That's why Tracy voted for the NBA over the other drafts. He basically said it was the QB class this week.
Let's not make it like we're the only ones doing it. I mean, the Browns quarterback situation is one of the more interesting.
It's not about interest for me. It's about, I don't know. For me,
we have to keep it interesting. We have to keep it interesting, whether anybody likes it or not. That's just the way the business is. We can do other things, yes, but we do have to hit the interesting point.
Yeah, but the NFL's just, I don't know. It's bland. It's bland until July. For me, the NFL, it is from August until the day the NFL draft ends. That is the amount of attention I give the NFL. Once the NFL draft ends, it goes on the back burner for me until August. It does. It goes in the back burner for me, and that's because of the other sports I cover for the draft coverage.
So after OTAs, we got 3 months where there's no NFL. 2-3 months where there's no NFL. So
we have hockey and NBA drafts. They're fun.
We do.
And this is a deep hockey draft. I mean, there's not a drop off from pick 30 to pick 110. How many NHL drafts can you say that about, Joey? There is not that big of a drop off from pick 30 to pick 110.
We really want to get into last year's draft, or was that the year before when I wanted to freaking back my head to a.
That was last year's draft, but this year's draft, there's not a drop-off in talent from pick 30 to pick 110.
Okay. Yeah, so we got a lot
So there's
of
64 hockey players that have experience on the first line, which is 10 more than last year's draft. And there's also 10 goalies that check off every box. So you're looking at 74 players that could develop into high-end talents, that could develop into all-star caliber talents, star talents. So realistically, that's 20. That if we look at this from a numbers game standpoint, that's 50 to 25 to 50 players that probably reach that ceiling. So, I mean,
So we got plenty of stuff to talk about. I mean, this is the last, like you said, this is the last week the NFL really matters. We got the NBA draft coming up. We got the NHL draft. We got all this stuff coming up. So,
and that's basically why I wanted to squeeze all the NFL scheduling into a 3-parter. That's why I wanted to have all the NFL scheduling done by June, because juggling all this in June with the NBA Finals, the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, the NFL draft, it's just a pain in the ass to juggle all this late for me.
And we should thank the NFL's Players Association for making OTAs in at the perfect time, because guess what? Now everything else is happening. We can focus on everything else. So thank you, NFL Players Association.
And we'll have the MLB draft in July too. But then after that, it's like 2 weeks. We get 2 weeks off until August when the preseason starts, and I'm not sure who the Hall of Fame game is. That'll be the very last football topic I bring up before.
Nobody cares about the Hall of Fame game anyway. You may as well just be putting
It's the Lions and Chargers this year, and it's actually on July 31st instead of August 1st. It's on July 31st, so that means season 15 of Draft Utopia starts on 8/2, August 2nd. So
I have no problem with Puppy in front of me, but I will have a problem with Puppy that says to shit in my walkway.
And it's going to be the Lions and the Chargers. That's the Hall of Fame game that they're going to air on TV this year. And okay, so the candidates getting elected into the Canton this year: Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, and Sterling Sharp. So those are the players that are going to get sworn in to Canton. And Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Sterling Shepard, and those are the 4 players that are going to get honored. I'm seeing if there's any other scouts or coaches that get honored in addition to those players. And it doesn't look like it's going to be those 4. It doesn't look like 4. It's only those 4. So it's the smallest class allowed under the Hall's current bylaws. So.
And I want to make something clear, something that Joe Thomas said about quarterbacks. He said, you'll know who can play and who can't really quickly. That comes from Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas didn't even make the all. They had an all AFC North all-time team. Joe Thomas didn't make it. It was Ogden and it was Anthony Munoz. And the thought process was those guys played 12 years with the Ravens and Bengals. Thomas only played 11, so he misses the cut.
Well, the criteria is fucking stupid to begin with.
Because they're basically basing it on longevity. They're not basing it off of quality of play. They're basing it off of longevity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why it's fucking stupid. But I can't say Ogden's a bad choice. It's like, hey, do I want to choose this Hall of Famer or that Hall of Famer?
It's really a 1A, 1B, 1C scenario, but because Thomas only played 11 years and the other 2 guys played 12 years, Munoz played a 13th year with the Buccaneers.
I rebuttal that. You know, I could say Thomas played 1,100 and something straight games, set an all-time record for players. You know, did Ogden do that? You know, so the criteria is stupid. Criteria is stupid. You know, it's like, if they would have said, this is a hard choice, 2 Hall of Famers, whatever. Okay, cool. But you're just going longevity.
Joe Thomas played 177 games and started 176.
It's something stupid. He didn't miss a game until his final season, and that's when he tore his tricep or whatever, and then he just retired after that season. So it's like, and anybody else do that?
And Thomas had 167 starts, 167. Ogden at 176.
Yeah. So if I'm gonna use that criteria is so flimsy. It's like how many years ago, how many starts, or how many games played, how many consecutive games played. So it's just a flimsy criteria. I mean, just give me your opinion. I'm not going to be upset about it because I love Ogden. I'm not going to,
And they had, and to be fair, they had Ogden as left tackle and Munoz as the right tackle. They did put a Browns lineman on. They put one of the Browns guards in the Hall of Fame. Let me see here. What do we got? It was I thought Grambling State was Georgia. That was brutal when I looked at Ohio State's schedule. I got those two mixed up, but yeah. I mean, like, I'm just trying to think. What was the here we go. They had Gene Hickerson. So the all-time AFC North offense, they got Jim Brown at running back. They got that right. They got Ozzie Newsome at tight end. They got that right. And they had Gene Hickerson as the left guard for the Browns. And then they had Mike Webster, Alan Faneca, and Munoz as the linemen. So Gene Hickerson got in, but Joe Thomas didn't for all-time AFC North offense.
Yeah, I didn't know Hickerson was the highest when it came to Hall of Fame or whatever. I know Deacon was a Hall of Famer, a long-time Browns home player. He was a Hall of Famer as an offensive
They
guard.
put Hines Ward, Antonio Brown, and Chad Ochocinco on this. I'd keep Ochocinco. I'm debating whether to remove Brown or Ward because I think Lynn Swann belongs on this. I do. I think Lynn Swann belongs on the all-time AFC North offense.
I would keep Ward.
Okay.
Ward, one of those goes. So I would take off Ochocinco. I love Ochocinco, but I'd take him off.
So you'd keep Antonio Brown and Hines Ward, but you get rid of Ochocinco. For me, I'd keep Ochocinco and Hines, but I'd probably replace Brown with Lynn Swann.
Brown
was great at his peak.
Brown was elite for like 3 seasons, and then very good for like 2 or 3. And Ochocinco was consistent, which is what I usually love. But we're talking about all-time team, which means we need all-time season.
Yeah.
And Antonio Brown gives all-time season.
Yeah.
So it's
I just think Lynn Swann belongs on this list somewhere.
absolutely.
I'm not going to argue with Roethlisberger over Bradshaw. I think both are excellent choices. That's a 1A, 1B thing, and I think Roethlisberger.
I would, because Bradshaw was a genius before his time. He called his own plays. He drew up his own plays. He was the offensive coordinator, not in name. They had an offensive coordinator, but that offensive coordinator didn't matter. Terry Bradshaw was the man. He was like modern day Ernie Kosar. Ernie Kosar did the same thing, but Terry Bradshaw had an elite talent set, where Kosar just had to be smart. So he revolutionized the game in a way that Kosar can duplicate. And it goes on. Dan Fouts, and guys that go on and on like that. Brett Favre did the same thing a lot of ways.
All-time AFC North defense would be Myles Garrett and Joe Green. Those would be the edge rushers. Myles Garrett and Joe Green would be the edge rushers for an all-time AFC North defense. I don't think that can... middle linebacker would be Ray Lewis. I don't know who the other 8 players would be if we're going with a 43 defense. That's what's tough for an all-time. Dick Butkus was the Bears middle linebacker, but Ray Lewis, Ravens, Joe Green, Steelers, Myles Garrett, Browns for all-time AFC North defense. Who else would make the cut?
I'm thinking somebody on that steel curve, and I don't know why Butkus came in mind.
You might. I think you got Butkus mixed up with Jack Ham. That's probably what happened.
Maybe. It's like brutal players.
I think Mel Blount, and I'm going to put Rod Woodson on this team because I think Rod Woodson played both corner and safety. So we'll put Mel Blount on this team.
He played safety for the
Ravens, and I think he played corner for the Steelers. So we can pick another corner besides. We can leave Mel Blount as the corner, but we can pick another corner besides Rod Woodson if you think there's one better for the All AFC North team.
Mel Blount, I'm glad Mel Blount gets his far. He was severely underrated.
Yeah. So, and I think we're in agreement. The safety should be Polamalu and Ed Reed for the All AFC North team, and then Woodson can be the other corner, I guess. But I think Denzel Ward would be the nickel. Like if we're including nickel corners, Ward would be my nickel for this these rankings. It's hard.
I know you put stack on me for this for many years. Polamalu was not good in the first 4 or 5 years of his career. But I'll tell you what, he had a 4 or 5 year period, or 3 to 5 year period, or whatever he played. I think he played 9, 10 years. The last 3 or 4 years of his career were all-time great.
Yeah.
All-time great. So I know you'll push back on me on that. At the time, I was living in the area where I could see every Steeler game. I saw it. But in his last 3 or 4 years, that was elite. All world. And, man, he should make this list simply on his hairline.
Yeah, I agree. But who are the outside linebackers? If this is a 43 defense, who are the outside linebackers? I mean, Ray Lewis would be a middle linebacker. I guess we could put Jack Ham as the weak side linebacker. So we need a Sam linebacker and we need 2 defensive tackles to round out the all-time team.
Something that my coworkers were joking about was something that Jerry Judy said. He said, Joe Flacco threw the greatest ball we never believed in until he caught it from. And I'm like, yeah, he throws the greatest ball to his receiver, and he throws the greatest ball to the defensive back. And they say the same thing you're saying, Jerry Judy. Oh, it's the greatest pass ever. It was like, yeah, it just falls into your hands. Like an angel placing a ball into him.
Oh, we got to put. Is Clay Matthews Sr. a middle outside linebacker? Can we make him the Sam linebacker for the defense?
An outside linebacker and a pass rusher.
Because if we're running a 43 defense, Joe Green and Garrett are edge rushers. Ray Lewis is our Mike linebacker, but and we'll put Jack Ham at the weak side, but the Sam linebacker would be Clay Matthews Sr. I mean, that's.
He did play inside whenever they would go to a. Back then, it wasn't the 3-4; it's the 4-4 was more of the 4 linebackers, and he would play inside on that one.
All right, so
that was a good catch, Chris.
All right.
Very good call.
I just realized that was a guy, and we needed to put him in the list. I just didn't. So now what do we have? We have 2 defensive tackle slots for the AFC North. That's it, and we just have to. And we pretty much created the All AFC North defense because they had a Facebook picture for the All AFC North offense, but they didn't do one for defense. So I figured us creating one for defense would be a fun way to end the show. So
it would. And it gave time for me to tell stories that nobody else really cares about, but people might find it. 1 or 2 viewers might find it fun.
I'm just trying to think what defensive tackles. I like Casey Hampton, but I wouldn't put him on the all-time list. I don't think he did enough career-wise to qualify for the all-time list. And I like him. He's a good player, but I'm just trying to think what defensive tackles came out of this division that were Haloti Ngata, good player, but I still like Casey Hampton. I feel like he did not do enough to make this list.
What was the big need in the middle for the Ravens on those great defenses. What's his name? He's color commentator. He's sideline commentator now.
Was he Tony Saragusa?
Saragusa, yeah.
Yeah, we'll put Saragusa on. That's a good one, Joey.
Saragusa is amazing.
Yeah.
I love
Who else we put defensive tackle?
What about Hayward?
Yeah, let's go with Hayward. I mean, yeah, you could argue that Joe Green should be a D tackle and that L.C. Greenwood should be on this list. That's not a bad argument, but I feel like Green's more of an edge rusher, and I feel like Hayward should be on the list as Joey suggested. So,
yeah, they're amazing players, and they never ask for recognition.
yeah.
They just went out there, did their damn jobs, and and that's it. You never know how great they are unless people actually talk about them.
Yep.
But they're great players.
I agree. But yeah, next week we'll have the NBA Finals preview. We'll have some topics prepared. I mean, we've got two Saturdays in June, and then for the mock drafts, we can have a little bit of a laid back show next Saturday, but NHL and NBA have to be at the forefront for the June 14th and 21st shows. So, but I guess we can have some fun next week. But I really don't want to think it over right now. I'm starting to get a headache, and I want to end the show. I appreciate everyone who stayed all the way through and listened to myself, listened to William, Joey. I really do appreciate that. Everybody who stayed all the way through. Yeah. So see you guys next week.